I'm in search of conversation guests. If you are interested or know someone that might be interested, please contact me directly. Thank you. Let's jump into your career. So you're you told me you're a clinical laboratory scientist?
Almost. Clinical laboratory scientist. It's okay because people don't even know who we are. I mean, at times I would just tell them, you know what, I'm studying to be a nurse, because people don't know. Everyone, when they think of the healthcare field, they think about doctors and nurses. And when you say, oh yeah, I'm going to be a clinical laboratory scientist or a medical technologist, they're like, nurse? I'm like, no. So there's more to the healthcare field than just nurses and doctors. But I kind of get it. That's, what they see firsthand. We're kind of like med techs are basically, I guess you could say, like, analogy. If there was an analogy, if a hospital was like the restaurant, we would be like the cooks. So you don't see us anyways. We're like in the back. Mm-hmm. We're in the laboratory. A lot of times we actually get the specimens would be shot down via this vacuum tube. So sometimes med techs don't even leave the laboratory. It just comes down in this vacuum tube, you pull out the specimen, and then, so that's how we like analyze specimens sometimes in different hospitals, depending on whether the hospital is well off or not. So yeah, and we're the ones that basically analyze bodily fluids, I want blood, fecal matter, urine, all of that stuff. We're the ones that look for parasites, things like that. Also blood banking, that's what we do. So we're the ones that we store the blood, we type the blood, make sure that it's the proper blood type. We're also the ones that are testing it for various antibodies that could cause like hemolytic reactions in individuals and things like that. A lot of people think that there's only there's A blood group, B, and then there's AB, and then there's O. There's actually hundreds of blood types actually, and I mean even RH. There's MNS. There's Duffy. There's so many different blood antigens. It's just the main ones that we know about, or that the average person actually understands, or the average person actually knows about, is just A, B, and RH. So when someone says I'm A positive or B positive, it means you're A, you have the A antigen, and then you're also RH positive, which means that you have the D antigen that's in the RH blood group, which is kind of complicated because the RH blood group itself has so many different antigens also. So it's really complex. It's more complex than people would think. So there's a lot of, when you're, especially when you're doing like an antibody screening and things like that, to make sure that when you're putting someone else's blood into someone else, that there won't be an immune reaction, that their body won't fight off those red blood cells, because it could be deadly. So that's blood banking, also immunology, serology, and molecular. So molecular biology, that's basically RT-PCR, or real-time reverse transcription PCR, and that's what we use to confirm an infection with COVID, for someone who has COVID-19. So that's also medtechs are the ones that do that. I mean, it's not relegated to just COVID-19. It's funny because a lot of people know RT-PCR and they automatically associate with COVID-19, but we use RT-PCR for many other. There are many other diseases that we use RT-PCR for. It's just because of COVID-19 and how everyone's affected by it. That's what everyone knows as the confirmatory test for COVID-19.
A little bit random. In about 2 weeks, I'm actually interviewing a doctor here in Las Vegas that, from my understanding, he deals with infectious patients, especially COVID. So while you're during this conversation, if you happen to think of any questions I should ask him, that'd be pretty awesome. So even even if they're pretty technical questions on your side, meaning questions that I wouldn't know anything medically about, but that'd be cool for you to just say it, and then I'll write it down, and then I'll ask him in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll shoot you some questions so that you can ask him, pick his brain a little bit.
Yeah. So with your work, you're in a lab and you don't deal with patients directly, or do you deal with patients? Okay.
We do. I mean, here in the Philippines, it's different. Here in the Philippines, we also are the phlebotomists, so we're the ones that extract the patients. But in the U.S., actually, clinical laboratory scientists usually don't perform phlebotomy, which means that they don't even extract the blood. They actually have separate people or phlebotomists that actually extract the blood, and then the specimen is then delivered to the med tech or clinical laboratory scientist in the lab. Yeah. But here in the Philippines, the med tech phlebotomy does fall under med tech. So when I was interning here in the Philippines, we indeed did go out and perform phlebotomy, and we would extract from patients in the ER and whatnot, which was an interesting experience. It's like, very interesting experience. But for the most part, we're kind of out of sight, out of mind, which is why a lot of people don't know who we are or don't even understand our profession. But we're very detrimental. It's a very important profession in diagnosing diseases. Like doctors, and I don't want to take anything away from doctors. Doctors, it's very difficult to be a doctor, but a lot of times they rely on us in order to perform tests so that we can, so that the doctor can properly diagnose the patient. Because the doctor can just go off of symptoms, right? Oh, I think this or I think that because he's experiencing this symptom or he's experiencing that symptom. But what they'll do is they're going to ask for blood work and they'll send it off to the lab or, for example, sputum samples. Like if the doctor might think that this individual has tuberculosis, he's not really going to be sure until he gets a sputum sample sent out and we perform, PCR on it, or if we, it's called acid AFB staining. But we basically, it's kind of gross, but you're basically with a stick, you're coiling this person's sputum that might have tuberculosis on it so that you can stain it and then look at it under a microscope. Wow. So it's we're a very integral part in the healthcare system. I wish that we did get a little bit more publicity, and maybe we do in movies, but they don't say we're med techs or clinical laboratory scientists, because even if you see any of those movies that are talking about pandemics or viral outbreaks, you just see a guy in the lab and then something happens and they're like, oh my gosh, blood got in his eye and then now he's infected with something, but they don't realize that that's basically our field. You know what I mean? That's what we do as medical technologists or clinical laboratory scientists. So very interesting. Actually, I was actually interning during the beginning of the pandemic. So I was working at a hospital, and at that time, we didn't know, honestly, no one knew how we could diagnose someone. Because if you think about it, I mean, at least now we know there are some symptoms that are kind of specific to COVID-19, like how people lose their sense of taste and sense of smell. Anosmia. I think it's. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly.
Probably better than I could say it.
They lose their sense of taste and lose their sense of smell, and we know that that's relatively specific for COVID-19 or to COVID-19. But at that time, I mean, dude, someone had dry cough, fever, body malaise. Okay, you've just enumerated the symptoms for 80% of upper respiratory diseases. You know what I mean? So we're trying to figure out how. And actually, early on, what some people noticed was lymphocytopenia. So that was one way that we were kind of, so we have different white blood cells. We have neutrophils, we have basophils, so that we have lymphocytes. Usually when a viral infection occurs, an individual experiences an increase in lymphocytes. So, but people that got COVID-19 seem to have a decrease in lymphocytes. So it's almost like opposite, you know what I mean? So usually most viral infections would cause an increase, but it actually decreased. And that was also an interesting thing because people that found that out actually pointed to that because that's what happened in people that had SARS-CoV, the first SARS, that the outbreak was in, I think, 2002 or 2003. So what they noticed in that outbreak, like 20 or 19 years ago, was that people had lymphocytopenia, and so therefore they applied it to the current situation. And it turns out, yeah, people that had SARS-CoV-2, or SARS-CoV-2 is basically the virus, COVID-19 is the disease. In case, because a lot of people kind of get that confused. They're like, they think COVID-19 is the virus, but it's actually like, how HIV is the virus and AIDS is actually the disease.
Oh.
So basically, the way we were looking at is like when we saw someone come in and they had like dry cough and fever, and we saw they had lymphocytopenia, then there was a good chance that they might have COVID-19 or might have a SARS-CoV-2 infection. But that's not even that specific, because even H1N1, which is a influenza virus, also causes lymphocytopenia. So they could also possibly have, H1N1. So, I mean, either way, I guess they're both infectious, so we should just be very careful anyways. But we didn't even know what to look for, and so we were all completely blind. And we're just like, anyone that had a cough, anyone that had dry cough or body malaise or fever, we just assumed they had COVID-19, and it was just really interesting. And actually, the first death outside of China, in my understanding, occurred here in the Philippines. So the first death was actually a Chinese individual, I believe, and he was admitted with, I believe, his wife. They're both kind of older people, and I think the first patient that died, I think, was outside of mainland China, was here in the Philippines. I mean, and it's funny because the public was already clamoring for a lockdown, or to lock down, to ensure that people didn't come in from the outside. We're trying to close down international travel, but the government's kind of worried about the economy and things like that. And so there was a period of time also where we were just kind of going around like everything was okay. We just assumed that maybe because Filipinos have a strong immune system that we're okay, right? And then out of nowhere, ICUs started becoming really full, and people started dying. And then hospitals basically started becoming overrun here in Manila, or NCR, which is Metro Manila, basically the main, I guess you could say the capital of the Philippines, Quezon City and Metro Manila. It's all lumped into, it's called the NCR, the National Capital Region. And so basically, we're like, uh-oh, it's real. Hospitals are starting to get overrun. So what the government did was they actually closed down NCR. They locked down the capital so that no one could leave. But the only thing the problem with, though, was that they gave a 2-day, I think, leeway. So they said, we're locking down in 2 days. Sorry. And what that caused was a mass exodus. So it almost exacerbated the problem, because it was a huge mass exodus of people that didn't want to be locked down in Metro Manila. Now, how is that? That's counterproductive, because the point was to keep the virus in NCR, and what happened was it caused everyone to get scared and basically try to leave Manila. It was huge. There's just all the highways were just packed of people trying to leave, and because no one wants to get stuck in here when they hear lockdown, and when you're going to lose your freedom, and we don't know if we're going to get food. Are they going to lock down the grocery stores? Everyone's in panic. It was super scary, almost like the end of the world. And then you have everyone that's trying to leave Manila. It's now you've just caused people that could potentially have COVID-19 to go to every other part of the Philippines, So there were a lot of things that, my experience here in the Philippines that we definitely weren't prepared. The countries that were prepared, it's interesting because Taiwan and South Korea, they did fine. They did, they beat it. But it's because they experienced outbreaks in the past. Recently, I mean, I was here in the Philippines when there was an outbreak of MERS-CoV, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. So MERS outbreak was in 2015, I believe, because I was here in the Philippines already, and I remember seeing on the news that Korea was locking down. So MERS is a coronavirus as well. It's just a different a strain of it, or basically It comes from the Middle East, hence MERS. But it's altogether though a different virus. As in it, like for example, SARS-CoV-2, it binds to the ACE2 receptor, and I believe MERS-CoV binds to the DPP4, the dipeptidyl peptidase 4 receptor, from if I remember from virology. But so they're different viruses, but I mean, nonetheless, they're both coronavirus. So they dealt with that outbreak in 2015. And then Taiwan dealt with the original SARS-CoV one in 2002 or 2003. So when this happened, it's like, man, they really had, their ish together. Like they knew what to do, while the rest of the world, we were all scrambling. Like we were like, oh man, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And we're lucky though that at least the fatality rate of SARS-CoV-2 isn't the same as SARS-CoV or MERS-CoV, because the fatality rate of those two viruses were a lot higher, actually. I believe MERS-CoV was around 30 to 40%, which means that 3 to 4 people out of 10 people infected could possibly die from it.
Yeah.
And then SARS was around 10 to 15%, I believe. So like 1 to 2 people out of 10 people infected could die. So we're lucky that at least SARS-CoV-2 doesn't seem to be as fatal, but it's still a large enough percentage where a lot of people could potentially die if we don't do something about it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I mean, one thing that's kind of interesting, though, I mean, thinking about it, it could also be why SARS-CoV-2 was able to spread the way and spread in a way that SARS-CoV and MERS-CoV couldn't, was because of if it's relatively low fatality rate, and then the fact that a lot of people actually don't even have symptoms, are asymptomatic. So when people had MERS-CoV, they didn't go out to bars and go drinking or go karaokeing or anything like that, not because they wanted to protect everyone else and the welfare of the nation, but because they felt horrible, and they just wanted to stay home because they felt really bad. And so, a lot of them died. So I think that also kind of like inhibited its spread, or basically kept MERS-CoV and SARS-CoV from spreading at a rate that SARS-CoV-2 is spreading at.
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense.
Did you happen to watch the prison guard podversation that I did with the prison guard?
Yeah, I watched.
So he recently got COVID, and did you watch? Do you remember in that podcast where his cousin actually got COVID and died? So.
Oh no, I didn't see that part.
Yeah, so his cousin's dead, and it was very emotional for him because unfortunate the way the wife dealt with his with the funeral, where he didn't get to attend the funeral because for whatever reason the wife, whatever drama is there. But so then he got COVID about 2 to 3 weeks ago, somewhere. But so he's really scared because he's thinking, holy shit, my cousin got COVID. Like my cousin's dead. Now he's got COVID. So he went out and he was, I think at the very first symptoms, he went and got tested. It said negative, but I think if I remember, he said he already bought all there's a cocktail of things.
For like therapeutics, vitamin D. Is that what you're talking?
There was more. I think there was a cocktail. Man, I don't want to say it because I'm screwing it up. It was very more medical, like certain pills and IVs and stuff. He bought that in preparation. The very next day, he went to get tested again, and it went positive. So the day before was negative, but he hung out with a friend that said that they were negative. That friend tested a day later. Yeah, they were positive. So he tested. He was negative. The next day, he was positive. Yeah. So he already had all the cocktails of items, and so he went in quarantine in a secluded house, or in a house that he knew none of his family was going to be at. He quarantined in that house, and he took all the medicine. And by chance, like you're saying, when you're saying people are asymptomatic, he ended up being an asymptomatic person. So it's just so emotionally draining, I imagine, from him thinking, holy fuck, my cousin died, and then now he's got COVID, but luckily asymptomatic. So it's just
he was asymptomatic.
It's just crazy to still go through those emotions.
It's really interesting because it's like, we understand that the majority of people that are vulnerable to this virus are basically people that are elderly and people that have comorbidities, that like diabetes, heart disease, things like that, right? But that doesn't necessarily hold true in all cases. Like there are people that are completely healthy that still happen to die from COVID-19. A lot of them, and a lot of people assume that it's automatically it's always got to be respiratory. Like, oh no, they're gonna die because of what they thought initially was ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. They're not necessarily sure if it is true ARDS, but they, a lot of people in the beginning they died of ARDS, but people actually were also dying of strokes too. The reason being is that because the endothelial cells also kind of have these. You remember I told you that the virus has basically its way of entering the cell is the ACE2 receptor. So any cell that has ACE2 receptors and all the necessary co-receptors, it's able to infiltrate or basically invade. And so there's some, endothelial cells that are also basically affected, and then those are the cells that basically line our blood vessels. And so they theorize that the virus basically is able to infect some of these cells and then causing the blood vessels to be damaged, and then the platelets go and try to repair these damaged endothelial cells, and then could possibly cause blockages and it could possibly lead to stroke. So that's one of the theories on why it causes strokes. I mean, there's a lot of things that we find very odd about this virus, because it's like it causes also issues with coagulation. Like some people have prolonged it's getting kind of deep, but let's just say people were also having coagulation issues. Like we were seeing things like prolonged PT and PTT, and we understand that this virus seems to have created antiphospholipid antibodies in some individuals, which are antibodies that are present in people that have systemic lupus erythematosus. So it's like weird. Like there's a lot of weird things about this virus, and we still, I mean, we're more than a year in, and there's still a lot of things that we don't know about this virus, which is why we do need to take the vaccine, which I think is absolutely pertinent, because the thing is if we try to attain herd immunity naturally, well, first of all, we're still far from it. Like, okay, I'll use the Philippines as an example because I'm more familiar with the data here in the Philippines. But here in the Philippines, there's roughly been about 500,000 people that are infected and 500,000 people that have recovered. So let's say 1 million people, but let's say that truly, let's say 3 million people were actually infected, or let's even go out on a limb and say 4 million people. Okay, 4 million people were infected. We also understand that as high as 1/3 of the people that are infected don't even produce antibodies, so they may not even have immunity after the first infection. Yeah, there was a study that showed that that as high as 33% of individuals, I'll send you the link, but 33% of individuals didn't have antibodies, or had a low antibody titer after acquiring a SARS-CoV-2 infection, which means that it's a possibility, and I'm just saying it's a possibility, that 1/3 of people infected may not even get immunity the first time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but let's just say, okay, 3 million people here in the Philippines, somehow, let's say they have immunity. There's 110 million people here in the Philippines. In order for herd immunity to occur, we need roughly about maybe 60 to 70% of the population to be immune, and we are far from that. So if some people are like, oh, we could do it naturally and we don't need vaccinations and we don't need vaccines. No, it's going to take a long time, not to mention a lot of people will die, and then also the chance that it could mutate, because as it hops from person to person, there could be I'm not saying, I don't want to go down that road and cause irrational fears of mutations. Oh, it's mutating. But what I'm saying is that the possibility is there that if you try to attain herd immunity naturally and it infects a certain amount of people, that it could mutate,
Interestingly enough, with COVID, and then after COVID vaccine and herd immunity happens, I imagine AMC will be packed out like crazy. I think festivals will be crazy. Heck, I mean, maybe if someone wants to put stock into Pampers baby diapers, because after COVID, after herd immunity happens, I think it's going to be the COVID boomers. There's going to be a massive influx of people just making love at festivals and movie theaters. Like it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, being cooped up, right? Like being cooped up for how long we've been cooped up. It's a challenge, man. I'm not gonna lie, dude. Like, it's like you go stir crazy, dude. It's like, man, even simple things like I remember it's like, oh man, I was like thinking, I was having dreams about just having Starbucks with my friends and just being able to talk to them and not have to worry about wearing face shields. Because here in the Philippines, we're actually required to wear face shields and face masks.
Yeah.
So we have to wear like the plastic face shields and face masks, and we do it because it's necessary. But I'm not gonna lie, I prefer, talking to people with face shields on? No, of course not. So there's times when like it's like something as simple as just getting coffee and being able to have a conversation with someone and not have to worry about spreading germs to someone else. So. I can't wait, dude. I honestly can't wait. I can't wait to, it's funny because it's like interesting because it's like you take these things for granted sometimes, like the simple pleasures until you really can't have it. Being able to like hug your aunts and your uncles that are like elderly and have like, comorbidities and stuff. It's like when I'm around my aunts, my titas or aunts here in the Philippines, it's like I'm so paranoid because I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think I have it, but I could be asymptomatic. And so like, there's like a piece of me that's scared. Like, I don't want to get them infected if I do have it, and a lot of my aunts are kind of like, oh, it's okay. You don't have it. You're not sick. And I'm like, we don't know that. That's why. So when I see people wearing masks, it's like, it kind of touches me too, because when they don't necessarily have to, when people like go out of their way to wear face masks and face shields and it's uncomfortable because it's like, it's like caring for one another. It's not necessarily initially people thought it's just so that you can avoid being infected by other, which is part of it. But the truth is that face masks actually protect people from you more than they protect you from other people. Yeah. So when I see people wearing face masks, I'm actually super grateful because it's like that person cares about other people. It's we're in this all together. It's not about, oh well, I know I won't die from it because I'm pretty sure I won't die from it. I mean, I'm not, well, fingers crossed, of course, but but I don't want to bring it to someone who will die from it. So that's my biggest like fear, and I like go out of my way to make sure that I'm always wearing my mask and always trying to social distance when possible. I think we just all got to do our part, and it's only temporary. See, a lot of people are kind of like, stop, we're gonna do this forever. No, we're not going to do this. Yeah. We got vaccines rolling out, and that's exactly why we need to take these vaccines, is because we don't want to do this forever. Yeah. I want to go to a movie theater, and I miss movie theaters, the taste of popcorn and the smell of feet. I don't know why movie theaters smell like feet, but they have that smell of feet. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it smells like wet carpet or something, but it's like when I smell it, I think, like, I'm here in AMC, You watch the previews and go to like the opening of like a Marvel movie, and then there's always that one breakdancing Spider-Man that comes out of nowhere, and you're like, there's like, that one dude that goes to watch the movie and he's like dressed up like Spider-Man and he starts breakdancing. And I hope AMC survives. I genuinely do, because there's too many memories that I hold dear at movie theaters.
Where do you think COVID-19 or is there going to be a COVID-20, or how does that work out? When is COVID-19 as in COVID 2019? Is that how and then there'll be a COVID-20, or how's that work?
No. So it's going to always be COVID-19, because unless there's another virus or a mutation of the virus, well, generally another virus that causes another disease, then it would be like, let's say that there's another coronavirus and it causes a disease in 2021, then it would be possibly, they would name it. They all kind of get together and decide to name it. So that's kind of like how it is. Like before, SARS-CoV-2 was called nCoV-19, because it's novel, which is like new coronavirus 2019. Then they changed it to SARS-CoV-2, and then and they saw that it was pretty similar to SARS-CoV, so it would make sense that they'd make it SARS-CoV-2. And then COVID-19, which was COVID disease 2019. But next year it's still going to be COVID-19.
I'm hoping for MERS, that was like Middle East. Middle East is in the name. Why didn't they call this Wuhan COVID or something? Why, or Wuhan respiratory disease?
I don't know. The thing is I think they're afraid of a little bit of like racism that could occur. Now I know it's you know what I mean. There is definitely, because the thing is, I hate to say it, but especially Asians, like first of all, we get lumped them all into one. Like we're either Chinese or Japanese.
Just to throw in 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to have a conversation with a professor of philosophy, and he already sent me an article, and we're going to discuss. He sent an article that was in New York that 2 Koreans were walking in the street, like college age women, but they happen to have a Korean flag with them, and they had their mask on, and then a black woman across the street, I think, came up and approached them and like started saying, "Hey, you need to get away from me," or something. "You need to get out of here." And the 2 Korean girls are like, "What the heck? Like, we have a right to be here. We're American. Like, why are you treating us like this?" And the black woman supposedly was really like a racial thing, like you're saying, because she's associating, just because they're Asian, not knowing exactly Korea, maybe how Korea's done very well with COVID.
Extremely well.
Yeah. So
there are far more Caucasians and probably realistically African Americans, or that probably have SARS-CoV-2 infections than Koreans. Let's just say that South Korea has dealt with it so well that I'm pretty sure that there are more white people that have it than South Korean people. But it's difficult, because I mean, we really do get lumped, like even Vietnamese, or if you tell them that you're Filipino, it's like you kind of get lumped into just one group, just Asians. You know what I mean? So I'm not exactly sure why they chose to name it COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 or even SARS-CoV, because even the original SARS was called SARS-CoV, and that proliferated throughout Asia as well. So I don't know, but there definitely was no racial, or that I know of, there was no racism involved with Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome. Like, then people didn't go, "Oh, you're from the Middle East, you have MERS." Or maybe in South Korea, because we didn't experience an outbreak here in the Philippines, which we were kind of worried. And because we saw that in South Korea, that they were locking down Seoul, and so we were worried. But then we kind of just figured, oh, maybe just Filipinos have a strong immune system, which it's true. Countries that I mean, here in the Philippines, we have tuberculosis still. I mean, we even still have polio, which was like virtually eliminated throughout the rest of the world. Same with tuberculosis. Like, so we're exposed to various pathogens that people in different countries aren't exposed to. So I could see like the immune system of Filipinos being relatively strong, or pretty strong, but that doesn't mean that they're impervious either. You know what I mean? So, but there's a lot of things with this virus that's just, I mean, even blood groups. They found that people that were blood type O seem to have some type of resistance or innate resistance to the virus. Not saying that if you are a blood type O that you're impervious and that you can't get infected by it, but they just saw statistically that people with the blood type O, which means that they lack both A antigen and B antigens on their red blood cells, seem to fare well against this virus, or better than others, which is interesting because type O seems to be the most prevalent type of blood. So it's interesting that they actually happen to be the least amount of detrimentally affected individuals, with them being or representing the most prominent blood type in the world, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, I mean, there's like a lot of things that we're trying to figure out. There's people that have genetic predisposition to being affected or vulnerable to this virus, and it's people. It's interesting. I mean, the internet, right? You see things circulating that it's caused by 5G networks.
Yeah.
and it's and they think it's like there's like conspiracy theories that it doesn't exist, and even here in the Philippines, there was someone spread like this viral post that bananas were the cure for COVID-19. And so I kid you not, dude, in the grocery store, you could not find a banana, dude. Like, it was ridiculous. Yeah, dude, like there were no bananas anywhere. So I think people use this pandemic to like exploit and push their own agendas too. And it's kind of disturbing. And, you know, that they would do so at such time. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that people in the banana industry push that fake post, but why would you post that unless you know what I mean? I still don't, unless they're just trolling people and they just want to see everyone buy bananas. I don't know. So I don't even know where I was going with this. I'm sorry.
On the, I'm going on a tangent too. I'm going to ask you about the vaccine. So if someone were to have a conspiracy theory saying that the vaccine is, so the government's going to implant a tracking device, or they don't believe in the vaccine. Let's actually just go with they don't believe in the vaccine. What's your response to that? Like, how could you?
Okay, well, for the first part, where they're trying to track you, I'm sorry, but dude, honestly, I'm not that important. Okay, there's over 300 million people in the U.S., and I mean, maybe if I was like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or someone that was extremely important or had some type of or was very significant, I could understand the government tracking me. Or maybe if I was doing something illegal, I'd be worried about the government tracking me. But even if the government did track me, it's not a big deal. But dude, it's totally unrealistic that they would be putting tracking devices in these vaccines. Because if they really wanted to track you, I hate to tell you this, they don't need a vaccine to track you. And the sad part is the majority of people put their information out for free on social media networks, and they're not half a bit worried about, you know, their privacy in terms of private corporations, which would probably do more unscrupulous things with your data, and they're more concerned about the government, which has other things that they're worried about. You know what I mean? So my point on that is like, I guess I'm saying I'm not that important. So if the government wants to track me, go ahead and track me. I have no, qualms about it. Because I'm not scared. I'm not doing anything illegal. Now, they don't. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, answer if they think the vaccine won't work because it's been too quickly made. How would you answer that? How would you debunk them? Or,
dude, honestly, I will say that the vaccine has been too quickly made, but not in a bad way, but in a good way. It is remarkable, and I think we need to applaud these scientists, these people that have created a vaccine in less than a year, because that is an amazing time frame. And I think everyday people don't understand how difficult it is to create a vaccine. It takes years and years and years and billions of dollars and a lot of research and a lot of to develop a vaccine, and we were able to do it in less than a year. I think it's not because the virus is fake, because the vaccine is fake. It's just because we have the technology now. Can you imagine the type of technology we have now? Like, you imagine that. Okay, so where did this begin? So I believe January. It was either January 9 or January 10. These scientists in a laboratory in Shanghai actually released the genome or the genetic sequence of SARS-CoV-2 to the public. I think they posted it on a website called verilogical.org, and then also in GenBank, because they knew something was up. This was weird. I believe it's from they isolated it from a patient that came from like the Wuhan market, I believe, from what I remember. So these these scientists, they saw this genetic sequence and they're like, okay, this is something new, and we need people to find out what this is. So they without, obviously without permission from the government, they posted it and they released it publicly. And my understanding is that laboratory was actually shut down for rectification the next day, or January 11. So it's kind of shady. But at the same time, man, those scientists are heroes. And I don't think anyone will ever know who those scientists were, because when they released the genetic sequence for that virus, it kickstarted a domino effect of scientists all around the world to start getting to work, to creating test kits, to creating methods of testing for the virus using RT-PCR, real-time RT-PCR. It kickstarted people so that they could start working on a vaccine already. And so it's amazing. Even this mRNA vaccine that Pfizer and Moderna came out with, it's amazing technology, and it's never been used in a vaccine before. This is its first implementation in a vaccine. And for me to like, I guess I would have to like go into what vaccines are. But so basically, okay, so there's a lot of different types of vaccines. So we have your first, it's like a live attenuated vaccine. You also have vaccines that are basically, it's one pathogen that, or one, for example, okay, let me put this. Okay, so the word vaccine comes from variole vaccinae, I believe. It comes from basically cowpox. And so this one individual who goes by the name of Edward Jenner, he was able to just realize that milkmaids that were milking cows seemed to never get smallpox. And he was trying to figure out, like, how come, milkmaids, it seemed that these milkmaids just never got smallpox. Well, he postulated that on these cows, they had like cowpox, basically, vaca. So these cows had infections that caused like these blisters on their udders. Like, so like these milkmaids would be like milking the cow, and these little blisters had pus in them. And as they were milking the cow, he postulated that their exposure to the pus of these cows that had cowpox allowed them to gain immunity to cowpox, which is not it's not dangerous to human beings, but then also allowed them to gain immunity to smallpox as well. So very interesting. So there's even other organisms that we could be exposed to that might allow us to develop immunity to other organisms, because they might carry antigens that have similar epitopes, which is epitopes is basically where the antibody attaches on the pathogen, on like on the spike protein or whatnot. So which is actually interesting, because they actually found a study too, which I can send you the link for that too, that there are a large percentage of people that seem to be innately immune, that have some type of immunity to SARS-CoV-2. And they some of them, obviously, that were infected with SARS-CoV-1 or the first SARS, seem to be immune to SARS-CoV-2. And that's very good news, because we were worried if there would be long-term immunity, right? But then we found people that were actually infected, or they found that people that were actually infected with SARS back in 2002 or 2003, even 18 years later, still seem to have some type of immunity to SARS-CoV-2. So that was awesome news. So the possibility of long-term immunity is very possible. So that's one thing that was to take from it. But then also people that never had exposure to either SARS-CoV or SARS-CoV-2 had immunity to also SARS-CoV-2 as well. So they think that maybe those individuals were exposed to another beta coronavirus or another coronavirus that wasn't harmful to humans, or maybe experienced like mild symptoms, and then they developed immunity to SARS-CoV-2. So there's that type of a vaccine where you're getting infected by another pathogen in the family that's not necessarily that dangerous to us, could provide immunity for another pathogen. Then there's also the live attenuated vaccines, like measles, mumps, rubella, where it's basically a live vaccine, but it's attenuated or weakened so that it can't do that much damage to us. Then there's the subunit vaccine. Now, subunit means that we're literally taking just a piece of the virus or bacteria, and basically allowing our bodies to be immune to that piece, or allowing our bodies to create immunity to that piece, so that if that pathogen happens to try to enter our body can recognize it because of the antigens that are present on that pathogen. So
is that piece like dead already, or is that piece just like
it's not even alive? It's just like a little piece of protein. So it's like the arm, or so it's not alive. It's you're just fabricating, almost like they basically synthesize like an arm of an individual, right? Or I mean, the way I like to explain it is like a uniform. Like, let's say that there's this building, and this building doesn't want to allow nurses in for whatever reason. I'm saying nurses because they have a uniform, and so people can recognize them. And so the way they cause that building to be able to recognize a nurse is they provide the uniforms and say, if you see anyone that comes in this with this uniform, then that is a nurse, and you don't allow that person in, or you attack that person. So the nurse itself isn't the one that's being provided to security of that building, but just the uniform, and saying, okay, this is what you need to look out for. So that's a subunit. So that's like the subunit. So it's just a portion of it. And so that's the subunit vaccine. And then, sorry about that. And then there's what else is there? There's subunit. Oh, and then there's the mRNA vaccine. So the subunit vaccine requires, for example, let's use that analogy of the building and the nurse. Side note. So you remember how you're saying, is that a live portion or a dead portion? Actually, if we're talking about viruses, an interesting thing is that technically viruses aren't even alive. So people are like, is the virus alive? Is it dead? By definition, it's not even alive, because the smallest unit of a living organism is a cell, and the virus itself isn't even a cell. It needs cells in order to proliferate or replicate. So that's why a lot of biologists and even virologists, they don't even say a virus is dead. They just say it's inactivated. So it's just kind of interesting. So if you think about it, technically, there's no part of a virus that's necessarily alive, but you wouldn't obviously want to, you know what I mean? You wouldn't want to be infected with a virus because it still would, cause damage. But basically, so that was, sorry, I digress. So, and then you have the mRNA vaccine. So what the mRNA vaccine does is so the thing is when we use a subunit vaccine, we need another organism to basically synthesize the protein so that we can purify that protein, and then we can inject it into individuals so that their bodies can gain immunity to that specific protein. Well, that also takes time, and you still have to find a secondary organism to basically put the genetic sequence of that protein, have it synthesize it, and then you'd have to purify it. So it's kind of a long process. So the mRNA vaccine bypasses that. So there's no requirement for a secondary organism. Instead, it's the genetic sequence specific to the antigen that we're targeting, which in SARS-CoV-2, it's the spike protein. So what they do is they take the genetic sequence of the spike protein, right? And it's basically coded in like a lipid nanoparticle, because that's what allows it to be go across the cell membrane, and it utilizes our own cell's machinery, or the endoplasmic reticulum, to basically create the spike protein, and then our own cells actually create the protein and then push it out. And so once the spike proteins are then transferred out of the cell, then our body can then create immunity or create antibodies specific to the spike protein. Now, the spike protein, the reason why is because the spike protein, first of all, it's on the outside, so it's very superficial. So obviously, if you're going to want your body to create antibodies to a specific portion, you'd want it to be on the outside because it's very superficial. But then also, antibodies can bind to the spike protein, which the spike protein is what binds to the ACE2 receptor. And so just the antibodies binding to the spike protein can have an effect in which just the antibodies being attached to the virus means that the virus itself can no longer bind to the ACE2 receptor. So it's almost like our antibodies can block, can bind to the spike 2 protein, or the spike protein, and then keep it from binding to the ACE2 receptor. So it doesn't just allow our bodies to basically recognize it, but it also can possibly keep the virus from infecting more cells. So the beauty of that is that we have the ability to change, or not we, but Pfizer and Moderna and various other companies working on mRNA vaccines. If there is a mutation or a heavy mutation, all they would really have to do, it would only take a few weeks for them to just go back, edit the genetic sequence for the new spike protein, if the spike protein was what it was changed in the mutation, and then basically start phase 1 trials. So it's like they could almost go back, open it like a Word document, change up the genetic sequence to the new genetic sequence, boom, send it off, and then move into phase 1 trials. Like it's amazing. And if it mutates again, same thing. All we got to do is go back. We got to see where the mutations occurred, and then they would then edit that genetic sequence, and then boom, like they would have another working vaccine for trials in like, you know, in maybe less than a month or a little over a month. So it's just amazing the technology, like where we're at now.
Can I just to make sure that I understand it correctly? So let's go with the nurse analogy, and we got the building. Let's change it to a person wearing black, just so it's easier. We don't want people wearing black clothes, all black clothes, to go into this building. So so that analogy. So the mRNA. A messenger RNA. Yeah. So they're taking the black clothing, they're printing like a copy of that to put it in your blood so that your white blood cells can build the tolerance and the antibody. Is that correct?
Yeah, our body can create, correct. It could just immunity towards that specific antigen.
Okay. So in that analogy, they could only print the black clothing. What is, just out of, I don't know if this is even a valid question. Can they mess up and print the person in the clothing too? Can something mess up?
Okay, so you're worried that maybe possibly that they might in an mRNA vaccine that the genetic sequence for the entire virus or a piece of no, they make sure that it's specific to just a spike protein. They actually synthesize it numerous times, both virtually and in real life, using other organisms to, you know, ensure that it's not, you don't have to worry that it's infectious. It's not going to replicate, or it's not going to be the virus itself, or it's not a mutated version of the virus. It's literally just a genetic sequence for that small portion of the virus. And they make sure that it's just a small portion of the virus, because it would be very detrimental if they accidentally printed out the entire virus or a piece of it that was still infectious and then injected. So you don't need to worry about that. It is indeed just specific to, for COVID-19, the two mRNA vaccines are specific to the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2. So you don't need to worry about that.
And then if in a normal sickness time frame, so someone with black clothing goes into the house or the building, and that person is replicating into your body, I'm guessing that's what I'm assuming that's why you get, like, if you get the cold or flu, your body is just heated up because all your white blood cells are trying to fight it. And
it's an immune response, inflammation, correct? So like your body is.
So when they print the black clothing and they put the black clothing into the building, is it still replicating? And that's why.
So the thing is it doesn't replicate. It's finite. So it's a specific amount of RNA sequences, or a specific amount of so they say RNA segments, or a specific amount of the RNA that it's only going to produce a certain amount of the spike protein. So it's not a chain reaction to where the thing with a virus itself is it creates more of the virus, and then that virus infects more cells, and then it starts creating more of the virus, and that affects more cells. With this, it's very finite. So basically, the mRNA that's responsible for the spike protein, once it's basically endoplasmic reticulum, once it's converted, or I guess you could say translated, they call it translating. So once it's translated into protein, or the spike proteins, the RNA is actually degraded. Because that's the thing with RNA, is that it's easily kind of degraded by various enzymes like RNase. That's why, like those vaccines, like Pfizer's vaccine, it needs to be in super cold freezers, like at negative 70 degrees Celsius, because RNA is it's somewhat labile. So no, once it's only a finite amount. It doesn't keep replicating and replicating and replicating. It's just a certain amount of those RNA sequences for the spike protein, and once that's done, then you got to get your second shot. So that's one vaccine. An interesting thing. So going on to the analogy. So let's say a person with black clothing. Okay. So the difference between a subunit and an mRNA is the subunit. It's going to be another person outside of the building that's going to produce the uniforms to give to the security of that building. The mRNA the mRNA vaccine is basically the instructions on how to make the uniform is just given to the building, and then the people in the building manufacture it themselves. So it's like they get the blueprints, and then they manufacture these black uniforms, and they say, okay, now this is what you need to look out for. So you don't need a secondary organism, or I believe they use yeast to like to produce the hepatitis B surface antigen that they use in hepatitis B vaccines. So you don't need that, and you bypass all that. And then also at the same time, the fact that it's completely editable, like they can change the genetic sequence if it happens to mutate and then just move into phase 1 trials very quickly. That makes this thing amazing. So that's one vaccine. That's basically the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. And then there's another one. It's called viral vector. So they use that's the AstraZeneca vaccine. Johnson and Johnson, I believe, is Johnson and Johnson is viral vectored as well, and I think Sputnik 5, which is Russia's vaccine. I think those are all viral vectored, which means that they use basically a virus that's not harmful to human beings. I think it's an adenovirus, to basically get those genetic blueprints into the cells so that our own cells can start making the spike protein. So the beauty of the Pfizer and Moderna is that it doesn't require, because remember, we need to figure out how to get it into the cell. Well, viruses can enter a cell. So they're using viruses to basically, that's the Johnson Johnson, I believe, AstraZeneca. I know that AstraZeneca and Sputnik 5. So they use a virus that's not harmful to human beings as a means to enter the cell so that it can get the genetic sequence for the spike protein to our own endoplasmic reticulum to start producing the spike protein so that we can gain immunity that way. So the difference is with the mRNA vaccines, they actually use, I think, a lipid, I think it's lipid nanoparticle transport. They use basically the lipid nanoparticle as the means to basically get it across the cell membrane so that our cells can start producing that spike protein. And then you have, so yeah, I was talking about the adenovirus viral vector. Actually, that's also what we use for gene therapy. So as a means to like modify our own DNA or like gene therapy, they will also use a viral vector, because basically they want to insert like a piece of DNA into our own cells. They use a virus to do it because viruses can infect our own cells, And so then if you want to insert a specific genetic sequence into our own cells, that's how they use it. So they use their viral vector as well. I mean, it's a little irrelevant to the conversation, but I'm just saying that gene therapy as well utilizes a viral vector, or utilizes the viral vector. And then so where was I at? So I got that, the viral vector. Oh, and then you have like one of the most basic of vaccines, and that's inactivated, where they literally just take the virus itself and they kill a bunch of it, or they don't kill it because viruses technically aren't alive, but they inactivate them and they inject the inactivated viruses into the person. So it's like taking a bunch of the people wearing the black uniforms, killing them, and then giving them to the building security and saying, don't let these people in. So that's the inactivated vaccine, and I believe that's the one from China. So that's the Sinovac by Sinopharma. But an interesting thing is there is indeed a subunit vaccine on its way. I think it's still in trials by Novavax. It's, I think, in the US. And Novavax is basically, what they're doing is they're synthesizing the spike protein. I'm sure it's a spike protein, and purifying it, and then they're going to be utilizing that spike protein and injecting it into people so that they can gain immunity to the virus as well. So sorry, was that a little bit complex?
No. I think I like hearing that stuff. I was unfortunately in a little bit of the bandwagon on the scared thought that this vaccine went through so fast. And I still kind of do feel this way a little bit. I still feel that the companies that built these vaccines, I felt like there's not enough information for me to understand it. And I don't know if that's their job. Meaning, when I see these reports from other doctors saying, yeah, this company did 40,000 tests on 40,000 people, 20,000 were placebo, 20,000 had the vaccine. Out of that 20,000, 99% was fine. So even with that, like, I felt like some of these vaccines, I wasn't able to see that data very well. So I mean, maybe it's my fault. Maybe
they weren't that transparent.
Yes.
Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Actually, if you're interested, I can send you all of the links. But actually, so when they publish the results from a study, it has to be peer reviewed before it's published in like the New England Journal of Medicine, Nature. So you can actually review all of that information. It's public. So if you're interested, you can read all about it. I mean, it's kind of a lot of pages about.
Well, no, so to get because it's so complicated. So if I were to look at that stuff, I probably wouldn't get it. So what I try to do is I try to go search doctors on YouTube that have a track record of reviewing things and explaining it in plain terms or in layman's terms. And it's a hit or miss or a non-accurate way of doing it, meaning I have to go find doctors that are on YouTube or on the internet that have a track record that I think I could trust. I mean, I might run across a bad doctor, you know, and I might be like, oh, this doctor's really good. It's a tough thing to navigate. And whether it be IT related, medical related, IT as in, I'm sure somebody that asked me about cryptocurrency, they have to wonder, do I know cryptocurrency that well? Am I a good programmer? You know, and I totally understand it.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, I think it's healthy to have skepticism for sure. Oh, go ahead, continue.
So no, that was kind of it. Just that if I'm looking for a doctor, it's almost like someone looking for a cryptocurrency person that wants to ask questions, or somebody that's looking for a programmer that has questions like, can they trust me? And then the same thing, can I trust a certain doctor? So,
absolutely. I mean, like I said, even everything that I'm saying right now, like, I urge everyone or anyone that's watching this to do their own research, actually. It's all out there. And usually things published in things like the New England Journal of Medicine or Nature, a lot of that stuff is usually like you have to pay for, or you have to be going to school to have access to that. But a lot of this is actually free for the public to read. And I think maybe that's like their contribution to the world because of this pandemic. So actually anyone that's like interested, go out there and do some research. And a lot of these studies are out there for people to read for free. Like the studies that I was telling you about where basically 1/3 of a sample population didn't seem to get immunity. But then there's also that other study though that I read that was optimistic, that showed that people that were infected with SARS-CoV back in 2002 had some immunity to SARS-CoV-2. So, I mean, these things they're really amazing. And, I love to just read researches. I know it sounds kind of nerdy, but
well, it's probably like me reading white papers for cryptocurrency. Like, it's so nerdy. But it's so nerdy,
but so interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it's profound. So there's I urge anyone that's like, if anyone's listening to this or watching this, like, to go out there and do your own research. If you're, I mean, all of the researchers that I talked to you in the past and during this, I'll send you the link. So if you want, you can put it up in the description. So if you're like interested in reading it.
On the 1/3, the 1/3 possible people that don't get the antibodies after having COVID, what information did you get that from, and what?
Yeah, I'll send that research, but there's a positive thing to take away from that, because if you read the research though, it also shows that the people that didn't seem to have immunity afterwards seem to have very robust immune systems, that they're thinking that basically they're basically, how can I put this? Their innate immune system. So there's two parts of like our immune system. There's like innate and adaptive. So our innate is our very basic, very it's basically essentially like the first line of defense, I guess you can say. And they're saying that basically that they postulate that these individuals' innate immune systems were so strong that our adaptive immune system wasn't a part of our immune system, didn't have to be kicked in order to gain immunity to SARS-CoV-2.
So,
That makes sense. So
the analogy with the building, would it be like maybe your building, your building already is able to kick out or beat up navy blue clothing, people with navy blue clothing, and so then with COVID, maybe that's the black clothing, and maybe the building security is like, well, we know how to beat up people with navy blue, so black clothing's not that different.
Kind of like that, but I think it'd be more, maybe more like the bouncers were just so strong. Or not bouncers, I guess you could say, or like the security was so strong that it didn't require, the people that were inside looking at cameras maybe to identify certain people, that wearing black uniforms. Like they just the security at the door was so strong that these viruses or these people with black uniforms just weren't able to do any damage to the building. So since they weren't able to do any damage to the building, maybe the security in the camera room didn't feel like they were dangerous enough in order, you know what I mean, to be put on a list, to be on lookout, I guess you can say. So in the end, I mean, to be honest with you, whether it's the vaccine, in the end, the real cure is our own bodies. So the real cure is our body just needs to be able to identify the virus. So it's blind. It doesn't know that SARS-CoV-2 is bad. It doesn't know that MERS-CoV is bad. So all a vaccine does is it allows our body, our immune system, to identify the pathogen so our body can go out and destroy it. So if you think about it, it's actually our own body is if you think about it, it's kind of cliche. Our own body is the cure, but it's the truth. It's just that's why usually they say, when people are in the ICU and if they've survived a certain amount of days, then prognosis is good, because the point is to basically keep them alive just long enough so that their body can start destroying the virus, so it can discern that the virus is bad and which one is the virus and attack it. And so that's basically it. Like our bodies have that ability. It's just that all the vaccine does, it just allows our own bodies to recognize the virus. So there's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, being in the healthcare field, I'm a huge proponent of vaccinating. I think the thing is, it's a numbers game though. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, there's this percentage of people that had adverse reactions or died. Well, the fact is I'm being realistic, that there's always a certain percentage of the population that might have an adverse reaction. That's part of any type of medication. I mean, how many people die from Tylenol or ibuprofen? I mean, my fiance, she's allergic to ibuprofen. So if she took ibuprofen, she could possibly die. I mean, even something as simple as peanuts. How many people die from eating peanuts, every year? So the truth is that, so the point of trials though, is it has to meet a certain percentage. Like if it exceeds that, that's when it's like, okay, this is dangerous. We can't introduce it to the public. That's the point of phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Yeah. I mean, they're continuously monitoring all of that. So here's the thing. So like one thing that I saw that came across was like, they said like, I don't know what country was that. Was that Norway? Or essentially, there were like, I guess 14 elderly patients that died. I think 14 elderly patients that died after receiving the vaccine. Okay, so, and then that kind of went a little bit viral here and people kind of got scared. But what you have to understand, I believe, don't quote me on this just yet. I mean, maybe I'll review the article, but when I was reading the article, what they don't read, they just see the title. That's the thing, is they see the title and they share it. They share the title on Facebook and it scares people. So mainstream media is also partly the blame, because if you actually read the article, it says, oh, by the way, 400 people a week die in these nursing homes, even without the vaccine. Oh, but 14 people that got the vaccine died. But 400 people like a week die in these nursing homes, because you have to remember the people that are getting vaccinated are the most like elderly, sickly, they have comorbidities. And also, if you sample a big enough population, just, people die. and that's just a part of it. So I guess my takeaway from this is that if you see something like that on Facebook, click it, read it fully, research on it, and you'll probably find that, hey, actually, it's not really that scary. They're like, oh my gosh, like 14 people died. Well, okay, here, how many people were vaccinated? I think it was, I think like 10 million people were vaccinated in Norway at that time. Okay, well, so let's say you take 10 million people that are elderly and sickly and you give them SARS-CoV-2 and they get COVID-19. How many people will die? And I'm sure far more than 14 people will just die if you take the most elderly people of a certain population and give them SARS-CoV-2. So I'm not exactly sure on the percentages on that, but when I clicked on that and like people were freaking out, they were sharing it all over Facebook. I was like, you know what? Please just read the article, because if you would have read the article, it says, oh yeah, by the way, so it's like, oh, 14 people died in I think it was Norway after they got the vaccine. Oh yeah, by the way, 400 people a week die in those nursing homes in Norway, by the way. Like, I wish they would,
Yeah.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help the situation, I guess. So yeah, no, I'm a huge proponent of vaccinating. I think we need to keep what is it? We really need to stop sharing negative things unless, I don't know. Hold on, sorry. I'm just kind of go. I guess it kind of frustrates me when people share just headlines, and then it's like scary headlines, and then they
it causes misinformation.
It causes misinformation, and of course, the outlet can be like, "No, I put in there this and this and this."
Yeah.
But it's like the headline is misleading, and I get it, so we can get clicks and get views. But the fact is that people see these headlines and they don't click. They just see the headline, and it's the headline that resonates with them, and they carry it with them, and they share it. I don't know how many people on Facebook share news articles, but don't read the news articles. They just share the headline, and then the headline, supports a certain idea that they're trying to push. You know what I mean? It supports a certain narrative. So I guess, excuse me, I'm just a little frustrated when people kind of like don't read the article when they start sharing it, because it can go viral. No pun intended, and not in a good way. So that's oh, go ahead.
What do you think about once people get vaccinated? What's the path or journey would you suggest afterwards? So if I got vaccinated and then I get the second shot in 2-3 weeks, so in 3 weeks I'm done. So should I have more fun now, go to restaurants, go out to public gatherings, still wear a mask or not wear a mask? I'm assuming wear a mask, but what's your outtake?
Yeah, still wear a mask.
Go
okay,
ahead.
go ahead. Oh, no. I mean, I would still say, because like my mom, she's been vaccinated. My sister's been vaccinated. My dad's getting his second shot actually tomorrow. And I still tell them that they should, and I don't even need to tell my sister, because she's a nurse, and so she's big on wearing masks, so she'll always wear her mask anyway. So I don't have to tell her to wear her mask. But I told my father that even after he gets his shot, that he should still continue to wear a mask until the CDC says like, hey, things are lightening up, and then and you don't need to wear masks anymore. I think it's very important, because another thing that they're still not sure of is that, okay, so maybe you can't get COVID-19, or it won't be severe if you have received these vaccines, but they're not sure if you can still spread it. So that's one thing, you may not, that's one thing that we're afraid of still, is that maybe all these people that are vaccinated, maybe they can't get infected, but maybe they can still carry it to someone. So it's still very important until CDC or the World Health Organization, or that you continue to be safe, wear your face masks, socially distance, until basically they say it's okay. I mean, I can't say otherwise, because like I said, I'm just an aspiring med tech. So I have to include that, by the way. I am not a doctor or a virologist. I'm just a aspiring med tech wearing a beanie. That's they always include that in financial. Yeah. Oh yeah, just let you know, this is not financial. This is not financial. Yeah, so I'm going to include that. So I'll just letting you know, this is not medical. What is that? Not medical
Advice.
medical advice. Yeah. So this is not medical advice. I am just an aspiring med tech that's wearing a beanie.
Is it
on the internet? On the internet. You know how they always say that? They even say not financial advice, like in bold letters.
Yeah. I actually try to say that often when I talk about cryptocurrency, because I often try to convince people to buy when I'm not a financial advisor. But my theory, or my knowledge, maybe theory. So correct me if I'm wrong, or if you get the vaccine, as far as we know, it doesn't prevent you from spreading it. So is it possible that when you get the vaccine, later on, I go out to a restaurant, someone has COVID in the restaurant, it gets into my body. So is at this point, does COVID actually still kind of spread into my body, but because I have the antibodies, it just doesn't negatively... It's not
able to affect you? We're not... see, that's the thing, is we're not sure. I mean, okay, looking at it from... like at face value, I would say that you probably couldn't spread, SARS-CoV-2 if you're vaccinated, but I can't certainly say that. I can't say that with 100% certainty, and neither can the authorities like the CDC and World Health Organization. So it's kind of better to err on the side of caution. Now, realistically, if you're vaccinated, I don't think you can spread it. I don't think, though. It's not likely that you can spread it, but there's a possibility. And so, I think they're just a little hesitant to say, like, okay, once you've been vaccinated, go. Like, this is, like, let's start up Coachella and Woodstock, and let's make love and not war. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think they're a little hesitant to just say that because they're not quite sure about the possible implications if someone can still spread it, but they just can't get infected with it. But I mean, from a logical standpoint, I would say I would guess that most people vaccinated that are immune probably can't spread it. But like I said, not with 100% certainty. So I would wait until the authorities in place for that would for those things would say give everyone the green light to just go out and have fun. But I think we're going to be wearing face masks for a while. I think realistically, at least until 2022, and I say at least. See, the thing is, America is kind of ahead of the curve in terms of vaccinating, but that's the thing is there's kind of the sad part of it is that the rest of the world, third world countries that don't have the money, unfortunately aren't getting the vaccine. Like, we're not here in the Philippines, we haven't really even started mass vaccinating. We're just trying to get our hands on it. And so that's kind of sad. So we need to focus also on getting countries that can't get vaccines. Because the thing is as the virus proliferates, it's not just that more people die, there's a chance that it could also mutate. So it's kind of one of those things where we need to like raise all ships. We need the rising tide. We can't just take the richest countries in the world and make sure that they're vaccinated and then don't care about these smaller countries that just don't have the money behind them. So that's another thing that they need to work on, and I believe the World Health Organization is working on that, but they need to figure out how to get vaccines to the rest of the world. Because here in the Philippines, it's like, I imagine, I don't know, man, wearing face shields and face masks may stay till 2023 because like we haven't even started mass vaccinating. Like I said, let's say that 4 million people, maybe 5 million people are immune to it. Let's say that, but we're still 110 million. So we got a long way to go to reach 60 to 70% in order to reach herd immunity. So that's another thing, another obstacle. But America, man, they're underway right now, man. They're mass vaccinating. And that's why it's kind of sad too, because you hear people in America that are like, oh, I'm not going to take the vaccine. But here in the Philippines, there's people that are like, oh my gosh, we need the vaccine. We want the vaccine. They're like clamoring for it. And then you hear other people are like, well, it's my turn. I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a punch in the gut. You know what I mean? Because you don't realize the fact that you're even potentially going to have access to the vaccine in like a month or two. And here in the Philippines, we're not even sure if our elderly the older population will have access to it, anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to realize, like, how kind of spoiled we are being Americans. How the rest of the world, they're trying to get as much of the vaccine as possible, and so that's just one message I'd like to get across.
Yeah, totally.
So if it's your turn, it's your turn to get the vaccine, then get the vaccine. Be proud that you got the vaccine, and be grateful that you got the vaccine, because there's people in countries around the world that are trying to get their hands on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Current events. GameStop, Cardano. Okay, let's go GameStop for the heck of it. So, what are your thoughts on the current GameStop thing?
Dude, honestly, it's awesome, man. To be honest with you, I'm glad that there was a second run at it. I'm not exactly sure if it's still happening. I hope it does on Monday. I knew it dropped quite a bit. And it's funny too, because same thing with AMC, because I'm a little bit in on AMC, and it's like it climbed to like 11 pre-market. Dude, everything was good. It was like firing on all cylinders, and then it kind of started to drop off. But the thing is now with, like, for example, AMC, I know there's a good chance, because in order for there to be a possible gamma squeeze because of all the call options out on AMC, on Friday, basically AMC had to close at $8 or above, and it closed at $8.01, dude. Like, and you could see it. It was like people were trying to fight it, and was just basically right before the bell, they were able to get it to $8.01. And so the possibility is still open. It's still there for a gamma squeeze next week, whether it be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Now that, that's not for sure. There's no for sure. I mean, even like Wall Street bets, right? It's called Wall Street bets, not like Wall Street guarantees. So there's no for sure possibility that there's going to be a squeeze, but there's a good chance. For me, I'm like huge on it, dude. I'm actually bullish on what happened. I think it's great. I think it's our way of kind of fighting back, or the people fighting back, because the truth is that, these hedge funds, these billionaires, these institutions, they manipulate the market every single day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all right if they're the ones that are manipulating the market. The moment we, the people, kind of unite and fight back, because we see that these people are basically squeezing companies out of existence without caring about their employees, it's like, dude, let's be realistic. A lot of these billionaire hedge funds, a lot of these millionaires, like, they'll survive during the pandemic when everything's locked down. But these people that are working at GameStop, these people that are working at AMC, it's like, dude, like, they're just trying to make ends meet. They're just trying to survive. So for them just to turn a buck to basically squeeze them out of existence so that they don't even have to cover their shorts, it's just unscrupulous on so many levels. And also, I mean, going into like cryptocurrency, that's kind of why a lot of people gravitate towards Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because it's the same thing. It's like they're trying to take control back over control that's placed on traditional markets. So yeah, dude, I'm huge on it. I'm hoping that there's going to be a second squeeze, both on AMC, on GME, even BlackBerry and Nokia. I mean, those haven't necessarily squeezed. Those are kind of like side meme stocks. But I hope they all go up. But what was really interesting is that during these past 4 days, the market's been in the red, dude. Like, it's been crashing hard, and it was a thing of beauty to see all of these stocks. Well, I mean, not a thing of beauty. I guess some people are losing money, but it was a thing of beauty to see all of these stocks red and seeing GME and AMC green. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, in the midst of a crashing market, these individuals that are somewhat hated on by like mainstream media weren't giving up on the fight. Whether they lost money, whether they gained money, it was the message they were trying to get across that was more important. And it's like, you could see it, and it's just an amazing movement, man. I don't know if it's necessarily true. I actually was reading on Wall Street Bets. There was this individual, and I believe the kid who died, his name was Alex, and it was these two friends, and they were buying in on GME and AMC, And there was a time when it didn't, it hit rock bottom. Like AMC hit like I think $5.50 a share, and they would always say, no, man. They're like, until it hits the moon, until Valhalla. They said that they're gonna hold until they died, and then his friend actually died, and this is according to the Post. They're still trying to verify it because it's actually going throughout. It's kind of viral, and everyone's trying to find out who this person is and if it really happened. If it really happened, they want to help pay for the funeral and stuff. But it's like these two friends, and so one of them died, and so he said, I'll hold it from here. Like, I'm not selling, just in memory of you. I will not sell, because they used to joke like we'll die before we sell our stocks. And so one of them died, and it was just interesting to like kind of see that post. Now, I hope it's real. I hope it's not just someone trolling, Wall Street bets. But it just kind of like touched me, because it's like it's the everyday person that's trying to kind of band together and I guess take down the establishment. So that's how I feel about it. What about you?
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm gonna play a devil's advocate scenario. I'm with you, but I'm just gonna play it. So say what if. So I think you're in the medical field. I'm in IT. In IT, I know that it gets so deep in IT that it gets confusing. I know all fields. I think medical is the same. I think I'm gonna connect it, but I'll get there.
I gotcha.
So when I get people that are dealing with my software or requests that comes in from upper management, and they get upset. They're like, why can't we do this? Why is it not working the way we wanted? Why are we having errors? And I'm just like, well, this is a very large system. There's data upon data. There's relationships. There's code. It is so massive. When you change one thing, where it affects is so massive. To explain that to someone, and then on top of that, they think, oh, it's just one line of code. Well, it might take me 6 hours to do the troubleshooting in the database, to get it to the data layer in the software, to figure out where the software is handling that data. I mean, this is years of experience to be able to get there. And a type of mind too. I think not everyone is set up to be a programmer, but it's so complicated. Now, take medical profession. I'm pretty sure there's people like, oh no, I don't want to take the vaccine. Vaccine's gonna hurt me.
Yeah.
So there's so many people that don't understand medical field, don't understand IT. Do we not understand NASDAQ, Dow, stocks, GME? Are we somehow? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I get it.
I'm on the other side. I'm with you. I think it's that. I dislike what's going on with the hedge fund managers. But is it possible that we don't understand stocks? We don't understand GameStop. We don't understand short selling. We don't understand that those hedge fund managers are just doing what they're capable of doing, and they're not really. Are they really not hurting society, or are they? Is it possible? Out of all that, are we the ones that's wrong for incorrectly understanding it?
Are we in the wrong? Okay, well, I'll kind of look at it this way, I guess. I mean, I'll take right and wrong out of the equation. I'll say that they're fighting for what's good for them, and we're fighting for what's good for us. Okay. Now I could understand now if maybe these were like mutual funds and maybe everyday people were invested in it, but no, these hedge funds, most of them aren't everyday people investing in it. They're not making making a buck for everyday people or other people that are investing in, portfolios or mutual funds or anything like that. It's more to serve their own cause. So, I mean, like I said, but is that wrong? I mean, to me, of course, it seems unscrupulous. That's from our side. And that's why I would like to just maybe take a look at it from an objective point of view and just say, okay, there's nothing right or wrong about it per se. But what I'm for is what's right for us, or what will take down the establishment. I mean, I don't want to completely take it down. That a lot of people are like, well, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a fine line between, basically anarchy and chaos and somewhat leveling out the playing field. You know what I mean? I think that the gap between the haves and the have-nots is just ridiculous. And a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, it's even more so ridiculous here in the Philippines, but I mean, it's still relatively ridiculous over there in the US. You know what I mean? So I think people don't understand, and even people that might say, "Oh, these Wall Street hooligans, they're messing up Wall Street and messing it up for all of us." And to be honest with you, a lot of those people they're not losing from it, and neither are they gaining from these hedge funds making money and squeezing companies out of existence. They're just watching various media networks that happen to be biased towards a certain view. I mean, if you look at it, even a lot of 4 years ago, the mainstream media was very bearish on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? And so subsequently, a lot of individuals over, say, the age of like 35, 40, they have a negative outlook on, or negative perspective on what cryptocurrency or what Bitcoin is. And so I think a lot of them don't understand, like, I guess maybe, being in the generation that we grew up in, we have a better understanding of where it sits right now, because we don't necessarily get just our news from mainstream media. Now, I'm not saying, we should always validate the sources of where we get our news. And yes, not everything that you see on Wall Street Bets is going to be accurate, and you should always verify that. But it's kind of like, the fact that we have access to all of this information. You just have to be good at filtering, the information. That's what the internet is, right? Because if you look back 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have this type of access to information. So it's I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. I know so I guess what I'm saying though is, yeah, I understand. So what I'm saying is that these people that say that we're kind of like shaking things up a bit, I don't think that they understand that they're not losing or benefiting from what's going on, but they're seeing it from a side that comes from mainstream media, which happens to have some skin in the game. I hate to say it, but all of these large networks have skin in the game, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of them and some of these CEOs happen to be connected to some of these hedge funds. So of course they're going to demonize a movement that's taking money out of their pocket. And so yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, if someone came into the medical field and then just started saying, "Oh, we're not going to take vaccines and this and that," I kind of get it, that maybe I would be upset about that. But I don't think it's necessarily the same as what's going on in the stock market right now with GME and AMC. I think it's just it's a form of protest, and I think it's a different form of protest, but it's a form of protest, and they're not doing anything illegal. So I mean, it's not like they're going in and robbing people at gunpoint. I mean, these hedge funds are shorting the stock. That's a risk, man. Shorting a stock is a huge risk, because it's like, if you think about it, the most you can gain is the worth of the stock, but the most you can lose is infinite, because the stock price can infinitely grow. So it's like, as a way to like make sure that they don't lose on a bet like that, they release articles and things that basically make AMC or GME look like there's no way they're going to survive, as a means to get people to sell their stocks, so that basically they can make it go out of business, so then they don't even have to cover their shorts. I mean, for me, that's kind of unscrupulous. I mean, for a bunch of individuals to say, we like GameStop, we like AMC, is it a coincidence that all of these stocks that are going up are basically companies that we grew up with, that we don't want to see gone? It's like, we love, Tootsie Roll, right? Tootsie Roll, Nokia, BlackBerry, AMC, GameStop, all of these, we have nostalgic memories surrounding every single one of these companies. So it's not like we're choosing random companies. We're choosing companies that we genuinely love. Now, whether or not they'll survive in the long run, we don't know. But as of right now, we're willing to put our money in to say that we believe that these companies still have a chance. And if we happen to cause a squeeze and we get some millionaires out of it, and hedge funds lose some millions out of the deal, then all the better for us. Maybe not for them, but for us. So
yeah, I totally agree with you. I think so many different angles. Let's see, probably the major one I would say is a morality on your economy, meaning America's economy. If we have GameStop in there and you have hedge fund managers with billions of dollars that are able to buy shorts on GameStop, and then, like you said, put out articles that basically cause a self-fulfilling prophecy, that is just a very vindictive angle. Now, if somehow, I don't know if this would work, this is just my theory currently, if they did something like what Facebook used to be with the like button, where there used to be only the like button, you can't dislike. The newest thing is you could hit the sad face button, but before that was only like. So what I think the correlation to that, if they did stocks and took away short buying, I think that'd be an interesting concept where you don't have, I mean, the worst that you have then, or I guess the worst at that point is just people buying stock and then creating fake articles and news to bump up something. But it's not the other way. It's not about buying a short, putting out bad news to make the company go under. Because when you're talking about when I say your economy, if you're an American and GameStop is a stock in America, that's a company in America, you should probably want your country to do better. Yeah, that's my theory. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm eliminating shorting a stock would be amazing, because honestly, I don't think even if I had, I don't have options, but even if I did have options, even if I was enrolled in options, I wouldn't short stocks, because for me, it's like, it's almost a negative vibe, man. It's like there's something that in me that just doesn't want to bet against a company and hope that they go out of business. It's just not aligned with who I am as a person. I don't know if they would ever eliminate shorting a stock or
I don't think they would, but I don't think they
ever would. I think that too many people make so much money doing it, and it's people that are probably, even connected probably to the SEC, dude. I wouldn't be surprised, man. I wouldn't be surprised. Sometimes I feel like the SEC, because the SEC is technically supposed to protect us, like we the people, right? It doesn't protect the company. It's the other way around. The SEC is supposed to be there to protect us. But sometimes, man, I don't see it that way. I agree with you. That's what they're doing. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if the SEC or some individuals that are higher up in the SEC kind of have some skin in the game as well. But
they're getting some type of kickback from pushing that agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wouldn't be surprised. But me personally, I'm not about shorting a company, because it's just so negative, right? I feel like, I somewhat believe in karma. When you're like hoping for someone or an entity or an institution to fail miserably, it's gonna come back around eventually, So why not? I get it. So here's the thing: is I understand why, because there's very few companies that succeed, right? And there's so many companies that fail. So it's far easier to choose companies that will fail than to choose companies that will succeed. Yeah. But what kind of an investor are you at that point? You know what I mean? Yeah. I wouldn't consider someone that's good at choosing companies that are going to fail necessarily a good investor. He may make a lot of money, but it's far more difficult to choose companies that will survive and thrive and succeed. And so I would much rather have a bunch of individuals who are very informed and looking for the next company that will succeed, to do their research and see, like, okay, this possibility could happen, this could happen, this could happen. And next thing you know, they could be like a Fortune 500 company. Then to see companies that are like, oh, like, yeah, to be honest with you, Blockbuster, it's on its way out. Let's just short it and then hope it goes out of business. And it's like, it's just kind of like a shady way of making money. You know what I mean?
This is probably a weird analogy. So imagine if you go to work and you're in a team and you got this person that this coworker that every time a project comes up, the manager's like, hey, let's do this. And then you're like, yeah, let's do that. That's going to be a lot of hard work, but that's going to pay off for the company. We're going to build a really cool software module or build something. And you get that one coworker that's, that's too much time. That's not going to work. It's not going to work because of this, or it's not going to work because of this, or this other thing may happen. And it's just this negative Nancy type of person all the time.
Yeah.
There's so many times I feel like when I work at a company, there's like, I don't know, 2 out of 5 is negative Nancy's. And it's so tough working with these people. Now, in the stock world, if the short buyers are the negative Nancy's, imagine a whole world of this ecosystem of negative Nancy's. It's just a bad vibe. It's not it feels like they're not in it to make America better. They're in it for themselves. And like you said, I understand, yes, it's easier to bet on losing companies because most companies go out of business, and you could even look at it from a analytical standpoint. You look at the numbers, and yes, you could predict that this company is not going to work out. Yeah. But what good does that actually bring to the world, except for that one person who's buying the short? And it's just, it's a terrible thing.
Well, if you think about it, actually, though, it's not even just the company that's losing out. Because when a short happens, they borrow the stock, they borrow it, and then the share, and they sell it to someone else at that price. So they sell it to someone knowing that share, or they have a good feeling that share is going to go down, and they borrow shares from a broker, and they sell it to someone else. And that other person has no clue, so they buy shares in that company. So it's even negative for the person that they sell the shares to, because they're literally, it's not even just the reason why they want to squeeze. So it's not even necessarily just the company that's losing money. It's the people that they're selling the shares to. And the reason why they want to go all the way is because if they can squeeze the company and make it go out of business, then they never have to repay shares because it goes down to zero. And so at that point, they're like, oh, dude, we did it. We achieved our goal, and they celebrate, and that's just dirty, man. So it's like, not only did they put a company out of business, but then they also sold shares to someone knowing that they would lose money by selling the shares to them at that price. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. I can't wrap. I mean, I'm sure I have some friends that are probably short selling, and to each their own. It's just my personal outlook on the act itself is kind of dirty. Yeah. And so if these guys are doing it, and finally a group of people band together and say, you know what, we're not going to let you guys squeeze this company out of existence. We're not going to let you, sell shares at a higher price, knowing that it's going to go low. We're going to make sure you pay for it because you've done it millions of times in the past. I'm all on board with that. Yeah. Even if I wasn't, even if I didn't have any skin in the game, I'm all on, on board with that. And so, it's interesting because a lot of people, they don't even have, that I know, they don't even have a lot of money to invest, and they're not even investing in it necessarily to make money. Some people are FOMOing, of course, fear of missing out. But I've talked to some of my friends, and they actually put money in the stock just so that they could say they were a part of the movement. Just so that they could say that if it's ever a movie 10 years down the road or something like that, they could say that they were a part of that movement, that on that day, every other day, the institutions and these hedge funds, they win, but at least not on those days they didn't. And so, they can be proud of that. So that's my take on the whole thing. And I mean, it's not over yet. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, it's going to be big. AMC has the potential for a gamma squeeze on Monday. It all depends on whether or not they have the volume or not. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because it's like, if you watch the closing on Friday, it was below $8 a share, and they fought, man. You can see that. You can see those candles, dude. It was like, and it was like, they're like, we're not giving up. And it's not like people are just putting in $10 or $20 to get this needle up above $8. They're putting in thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're just trying to fight it. And it's so crazy because we won by 1 cent. We got the $8.01. So the possibility of a gamma squeeze on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is still there. Yeah. it's remarkable. I mean, just to even witness, it's remarkable. A lot of people don't understand, and they see it on the news. I mean, here in the Philippines, even the GameStop craze thing was like on the news, even here in the Philippines, right? So this is worldwide, and everyone that I talk to, even here in the Philippines, they're happy that it happened, especially once they understand exactly what happened. Because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people don't understand short selling, and it's kind of complicated at times with explain them. Short selling, because they're like, wait, how do they do that? And I'm like, honestly, I said, I mean, like you were saying, I would be happy if they eliminated that, but I just don't see it going.
I don't think so either. Let's make fun of JC for a moment. So let's talk about that story where he. So what do you know of the story? It was it 25 Bitcoin that he was, or 15 Bitcoin? Do you happen to remember?
15. I think it was 15. Either 15 Bitcoin or 50 Bitcoin, but it was either 15 or 50.
Okay. So then that was for a tournament where he placed he was in the bubble. So where he got some money, but he didn't get he got a prize, but not very much, and the bottom prize was 50 if it was 50 Bitcoin. Nowadays, 50 Bitcoin is
50 times 48,000. So
let's just call it 50,000. 50,000 by 50. That's $2.5 million.
$2.5 million.
So JC's he was a professional gamer, or near professional gamer. At that time.
A semi-professional. I think he's a semi-professional gamer.
Yeah. And so in that tournament, he was offered 50 Bitcoin or an equivalent amount at that time of, was it World of Warcraft cash?
I think wait, hold on. I think those are two different stories. I think actually the one where he missed out on 50 Bitcoin was when someone approached him on the server trying to buy his WoW gold. So a person. So basically, someone was trying to buy WoW gold, which is a video game, like gold
digital
in
currency.
A video game.
Yeah.
With Bitcoin, and I think it was either 15 or 50 Bitcoin. Let's just say 50 Bitcoin. And then JC was like, "No, man, get your fake money out of here. Like, I don't want your Bitcoin. Like, what is Bitcoin?" So the guy was like, "Okay, So basically, for that in-game gold that he could have sold to this guy, it potentially could have been like how many millions of dollars. But I mean, I get it. It's funny. It's hilarious because if you just turn back the time to like 2011 and 2012, I think what Bitcoin was actually usable. 2009, I think, is when the ledger.
Yeah, 2009, and I think by 2012 it might have hit $120. So I'm guessing by his story, maybe it's around $120. So for 50 Bitcoin, 50 Bitcoin. No, that would have been that would have been $5,000 for whatever he was dealing with.
I think WoW was 2010, 2009.
So that would have been freaking like
basically when it just went online, because I think the Bitcoin ledger went online. I think 2009, if I remember.
Yeah, 2009. Yeah, but I think it was sub-penny at that point.
Yeah, so that's why I think the dude was like, "I'll offer you 50 Bitcoin for like WoW gold," and then JC was like, "What? Like, I don't need your fake money. Like, what is this Bitcoin you speak of?" Like, so it was like percentages of a penny. It was like fractions of a penny at that time. I mean, if only he knew, right? If only he knew. But it's funny because he was saying, he always says though, he feels bad, but then he goes, "You know what? To be honest with you, though, knowing myself, he would say, knowing myself back then, that if I got that 50 Bitcoin, he's like, I probably would have misplaced it. I probably would have.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't have been able to have access to it. So he said it might have even sucked even more because knowing that he has 50 Bitcoin locked up somewhere that he can't even access, than to know that at least passed up on it. So at least, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, even you remember us, even with me, it's like back in 2010, 2009, I believe it was 2009 also. I was a computer tech, and you remember I was saying that we had this one guy named Carl, and he used to be hugely bullish on Bitcoin back then in 2009. I think he loved the idea of it all. Like, and I'm not gonna lie, he was kind of awkward. He was kind of a weird cat. I'm not gonna lie. But he used to just talk about mining, and he would go on and on about Bitcoin. And you know, when we worked at this company, we were these computer techs. It's funny because he would like install it on all of the customer computers that we were working on, and basically mine Bitcoin, you know, on the clock. And the supervisor would always ask us like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And we're like, "Oh, we're running a burn-in test to make sure that all of the components are functioning properly." But in all reality, I mean, to be honest with you, it was a burn-in test because I'm sure it was taxing the heck out of the processor. But you know, we would, you know, little did he know we were just mining Bitcoin using, you know, all of the computers that we had in stock. So it was pretty hilarious. And you know, I just let Carl do his thing. And you know, I wonder how he's doing now. I hope maybe he's in, you know, Tahiti somewhere, just enjoying some Mai Tais or something.
Retired.
So, I think we all kind of have that story where we could have bought in a lot sooner, a long time ago. We just didn't.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. For any of those stories, if you know that you already told me before, just go ahead and tell the story like as if I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In 2008, the white paper of Bitcoin was out, and I told you the story already. But my coworker came up to me in 2008, and I'm trying to remember the exact story. I remember a group of us coworkers were like working on the dev server or something. And my coworker comes up and he just asks the group, he says, "Hey, what do you guys think about this Bitcoin?" And I'm like, "What's that?" And he's, "You haven't heard about it? It's this white paper. It's online. Like this white paper is online, but the cryptocurrency is about to go online in a little bit. Are you going to buy any?" And I'm like, "What? What is this? What is Bitcoin?" And so he explained cryptocurrency. They made this money online. And at the time, as a junior programmer, I didn't understand RSA encryption yet, which is the fundamentals of all internet and cryptocurrency. RSA encryption is the thing. Do you know RSA encryption, like the private key, public key?
I used to use PGP, which was basically it was a public implementation of basically RSA encryption for encrypting messages or encrypting files that you were going to send, you know, by email. And it's funny because I had no need for it back then. I just thought it was really cool that you could encrypt your messages and stuff. But in all reality, any of the messages I was sending, even if the government or any individual happened to intercept, it was all meaningless. It was just like me being like, "Oh, this is so cool." Yeah. Like, you know how many supercomputers it would take? How many supercomputers it would take in order to crack this code and figure out my message? So I know about RSA encryption for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So at that time in 2009, as a programmer, you would think I would actually know RSA encryption, but I actually didn't. Yeah. So, or 2008. And so that coworker, and he said, "What do you think?" I actually replied. I said to him, I sat there for a second. I thought about it. I was like, okay, if you have the internet, you have code, you have programming code running on a website, and if you have some type of mining server doing this, how would you hash it or secure it and whatnot? So I sat there thinking about it for like probably 10 seconds, and I told him, "No, I don't think there's a way anybody could design that. There's no way that Bitcoin's going to last. It's going to be a fad. Someone's going to break the security. It's going to be hacked. Yeah. So I'm not going to buy any." So I think 7 years later, when I figured it out, I was like, "Damn it! Why didn't I look into RSA encryption? Why didn't I buy some Bitcoin?" So about 7 years later is when I bought in, which was 2016.
Now, did you buy into Bitcoin or was it Ethereum that you mainly went into? Like, what was
Ethereum was
crypto?
Yeah, Ethereum.
Ethereum. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because you remember I told you like I was so I came to the Philippines in 2014, and so I was trying to figure out how I'd be able to like kind of like every now and then get some money over here from my U.S. bank account, and so I actually would use Bitcoin. At that time, gas fees were a lot cheaper. Gas fees now are kind of getting ridiculous. So the cost to transfer the cryptocurrency. So at that time it was a lot cheaper, and so I used to just transfer Bitcoin, and then I would basically cash out in my coins.ph account here in the Philippines. And then it was interesting because then I found out a different way of like being able to get my money here in the Philippines. So I forgot about it, and it's so hilarious because it's like I forgot a little less than a half a Bitcoin. It was like left in my wallet. And in 2017, when I saw on the news that it skyrocketed to like $5,000, I was like, whoa, and looking back, I kind of regret it, but at the same time, it's like, dude, I still came up. Like when I logged in, it turned into like 2,000 some dollars, right? So I was like so stoked. 2,500, 2,000, a little more than $2,500, like that. I think it was like $200 worth of Bitcoin at that. Half a coin, I think, was $200 when I first bought it, and so now it was, almost $3,000. And basically, I was just like, oh, just freaking cashed out, dude. I was super stoked and happy and excited, but now it kind of sucks because that half coin is now worth about $25,000 if I just would have sat on it for another 3 years. I mean,
Yep.
A profit's a profit. It's not like I was necessarily investing it. I mean, it's interesting because during the time that I was transferring money back and forth, there was a time when I actually had 7 Bitcoins in my coin wallet, my coins.ph wallet. And so what is that equal to now? Oh my gosh, that's a lot that's like $400,000.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I had a house worth of Bitcoins in my coins.ph account at one point in time. Oh, hindsight's always 2020, dude. It's kind of it's like reminiscing these memories. It's a bit painful. It's kind of a little tender, but it is what it is, So
yeah. All right, so I think I'm going to start the final questions, but we got a decent amount of time, so go on as many tangents as you want. And I figure these questions will just kind of these questions are here just to let us do tangents, really, too. So, first question, what daily habits do you have that greatly improve your life?
I love, well, there's a few of them. Well, first of all, I love listening to podcasts. That's one thing. I think you can get a lot of insight from podcasts, even if you don't necessarily agree with the person or the people involved in the podcast. It's very interesting to entertain their ideas and just see their perspective on things. Also, I love reading researches like NCBI, NLH, I think ncbi.nlh.gov or NLM. I'm not sure. I'll send you the link, but you can search there. It's on my bookmark, so I don't type in NCBI anymore. I mean? So, and read researches, not just specific to COVID-19. Sorry, not just specific to COVID-19, but like just everything in general. Like access to, even in terms of like exercising and things, there's a lot of researches out there, and it's a good way to get insight on things rather than just going onto YouTube and just watching YouTube channels. I mean, nothing against that, of course. That's what we're doing, right? But I mean, I would just say that I would like people that watch these YouTube channels to just, I hope it inspires them to go out of their way to kind of just research further and look into it more, because there's a lot more than meets the eye. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I like reading researches and various studies on all aspects of life, not just COVID-19. So that's another thing I think that adds to me. I mean, I love learning, I guess. That's just one of those things where I feel it's never a waste. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to try to study because it's a waste of time. I think learning is never a waste of time. I think that anytime you can understand more things, you can retain more things, you can learn new skills and learn about something, it's always beneficial to you. It always adds like even more meaning to your life. It's never a waste of time,
So
and I'm not saying, oh, go ahead.
I'm a bit extreme on that. So I don't watch shows like what's it called, Game of Thrones. I don't watch shows like Tiger King.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
And no, that's fine. This so any popular show, pop culture of all sorts, I kind of don't really partake in that. There's a bad side to it, whereas in if I go hang out at a party and people start talking about Game of Thrones and they talk about this or that pop culture, I'm kind of like oblivious to it. I don't know. But what I am doing with all that time every day is I'm watching a documentary. I'm learning about biology, about animals, about human nature. I'm learning about computers. I'm learning medical stuff. Like it's every day. I love to have documentaries on, and this has been going on since I was maybe 24 years old. So I've been doing this. It's just me. That's just who I am. So I agree with you. Just learning. I don't think it's ever bad. And I wish people would learn more, because I think that would make our society a better place.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I do watch like TV shows like Game of Thrones. I do watch Korean dramas. That's kind of like my guilty vice. Is this going to be on there? Wait, anyway. So I do watch like Korean dramas and stuff like that. But it's just an additional experience to my day to learn something new. Like, you know what I mean? And documentaries, dude. I love documentaries. I love even food, documentaries where they travel and then they allow you to learn new things about the culture through their food. And I agree. I feel like coming out of it, you feel like you're like me. I feel like I'm a better Jeff than I was yesterday, just coming out of like learning something new or seeing a different perspective through listening to a podcast, or you know what I mean? It's just we as human beings, we are capable of far more than what most of the people kind of. I mean, it's kind of a waste, I guess you could say, if you're not trying to learn anything.
I would say I'm on the extreme side, where I watch probably, I don't know, if 98% of my entertainment time is watching documentaries. 2% of the time, I enjoy watching X-Men movies. I enjoy watching Hitchhiker's Guide movies. Just also, I mean, any type of movie to some degree. It might encompass only 2% of my time. Now, for the normal person, I don't know if it's flipped. Maybe they enjoy the entertainment movies 95% of the time, and maybe 5% of the time they watch a documentary. So to each their own, but I think I kind of wish, I wish more people would watch documentaries and or learn stuff a little bit more.
I mean, I think once they go down that road, I think it's just because they're not exposed to it. I don't, it's not necessarily cool, I guess, in this day and age, or maybe to some people it is. So
I'm with you. I think if someone heard me say, "Oh, you watch so many documentaries," I'm a freaking nerd. It does have a bit of like a stigma on being that much of a nerd.
I mean, I say it all the time too, and a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, dude, Jeff is nerdy," but I actually kind of wear that like a badge of honor, because to be honest with you, I mean, it just means that I'm interested in the world in general, not just sports, which I'm interested in sports too. I kind of, but like just everything in general. Like, have you ever? I think it's called Veritasium. Have you ever checked out Veritasium?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Dude, I love Veritasium, dude. Like, honestly, like, amazing channel, and the amount of information and things that I've learned there about physics and just everything in general, and it's amazing. And so I love channels like that. And that would be awesome if one day I could create a channel like that. And yeah, it wouldn't be anywhere near the size of Veritasium, but it would be cool if I was able to make a channel like that so that I can appeal or inspire other people that are interested in learning. But as for his subscribers, the amount of subscribers that he has, you can see that there are a lot of people that maybe are also possibly secret nerds that maybe don't want to necessarily exude nerdiness, but are curious about the world around us.
Yeah, Veritasium, Vsauce,
yes,
Mark Rober.
I haven't heard that. Mark Rober.
Oh yeah, check that out sometime.
How Rober or?
Yeah, I think that's how it's spelled.
I'll check it out.
And then what's the other one? Vsauce. There was one other one that I wanted to name off. But yeah, there's so many channels and they all got millions of subscribers. So yeah, there's definitely a growing, hopefully a growing subset
population.
Of
people. Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, when you meet another person like that, you kind of already are you kind of see that you guys are on the same page, because it's you guys can talk about things that normally other people can't talk about or don't want or care to talk about, or it bores them. I mean, just the fact that we can go on about things like cryptocurrency or GameStop or AMC just kind of shows you that we're just interested in the world around us. We don't know. Now there's a difference. We definitely don't know what we don't know. So
there's too much to know.
Too much to know. And it's funny too, because a lot of times people ask me stuff and I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, why don't you know? And I was like, why would I know? And they're like, don't you know everything? I'm like, no, I don't know everything. You know what I mean? But they're always like, and I'm like, why? I don't know that. Why would I know that? And then they're like, why wouldn't you know that? I'm like, no. But, hey, if you're interested, I said, why don't you find out? I think that's the main thing is the moment you think you know everything, you just stop learning. So it's you kind of approach everything almost like a beginner, even there's things where you're like, oh, you know quite a bit in that field, you still sound sometimes like you're not confident. It's like, no, it's because you might know 1%. You think you know a lot, but maybe it's only 1%, not even 1% of that field. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think it's important to know what you don't know and know that what you don't know is far more than what you do know.
As much as I talk about cryptocurrency, I know there's a deep world of stuff that I don't know with cryptocurrency. Same thing with programming. I've done programming for 15 years, and I know there's a lot of stuff that there's so much more to learn. Different languages, different ways of building software, different platforms. It's just immense. The amount of stuff that we humans have created, it's so immense that it's impossible to know everything.
Yeah. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then you get into philosophy, which is things that you don't ever know you'll ever know. I don't think you'll ever find the answer to most of these philosophical questions. Then you're like, wow, that's deep, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Do we even exist? Are we in someone's dream? And what is consciousness? I mean, even getting into what is consciousness? What is you know what I mean? It's oh my gosh, it blows your mind.
Yeah.
It's you listen to the guys like Sam Harris, and how he's a proponent of, or I guess he basically says he doesn't believe in choice. There's no, for him it's everything happens. It's almost from the beginning of time. It's just a long domino set of one atom hitting another atom and hitting another, or even smaller than that, electron hitting another. You know what I mean? That it would lead you to this point. You know what I mean? He doesn't believe necessarily in free will, which is, I mean, I do, and that's just me choosing to believe in free will, because I feel like it's more empowering to say that you believe in free will, because you take responsibility for your life, you take responsibility for all your choices, and it's a powerful thing to say that you control your destiny, or you control your choices. Actually, you control your decisions, rather than to say that everything is predestined, because then you throw in random things in there, they're like, well, okay, well then if no one is subject to free will, then that means criminals shouldn't be punished because it wasn't their choice. to commit that act of violence or to commit that crime.
Yeah.
Because everything just happened from before them. It was just a series of, this and that led to this, that led to that. And even on a molecular level, from this atom hitting this atom and this atom and this atom, that we would make the decisions that we make in life, that we would cause something to happen, was all basically a part of this chain reaction that occurred from the beginning of time. I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, I don't believe in it. I believe in free will and choice, but it's just an interesting idea to entertain. And it's like, man, I don't think you'll ever find the answer to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not currently, not within the foreseeable near future.
Yeah. And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna switch topics if we're done, but go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So, what do you think about cryptocurrency? What do you know and think of cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency is. I'm a huge proponent of it. I'm bullish on cryptocurrency. I think it's weird because a lot of people think it's just one facet or one aspect. But I mean, if you take this aspect and you blow it up, it is a broad subject. I mean, the thing is like not all people that like cryptocurrency are a monolith, and it's good. I like the diversity. I like that people support their own coins. I think it's an amazing thing. I think there are communities. It's more than just a currency or a movement. I think it's a bunch of communities that like bind together and believe in their currency and believe that their currency will make a difference in this world. Now, it's interesting because, one of the main things that like a lot of people like to push when in terms that are huge fans of it is that, it's decentralized. And I think there are both advantages and disadvantages to that. But it's interesting that, it's like we are big on decentralization, yet maybe not the purists, but like investors, they get so excited when huge institutions and companies buy into Bitcoin. Like, you know what I mean? Which I get. It's good. They were like, oh yeah, they're now accepting us. But they forget that the very thing that drew them to Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies was the fact that they wanted to get away from these huge institutions and corporations from controlling the market. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's kind of a catch-22. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, now JP Morgan is saying that it's, 1% of your portfolio or 2 or 3%, it's okay to be in crypto or something like that. And they're all like excited about it, that JP Morgan might be coming over to crypto. But then at the same time, you have to realize that like a lot of these institutions, these corporations, these conglomerates, they're coming into crypto not out of benevolence, not because now they accept the underlying fundamentals of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. They're coming to dominate it. That's what they want. You know what I mean? So I think people kind of have to be a little bit careful. I think investors like that though, because the bottom line is when institutions come in and they buy in Bitcoin and buy up Bitcoin and do all this, the price of Bitcoin goes up. And so the worth of your portfolio also goes up too. But you have to realize that there's also a downside to that we're actually kind of losing a little bit of that purity that they were so hungry for in a decentralized cryptocurrency or global cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? Now, am I saying it's a bad thing? No, I'm just saying, like I said, let's not necessarily say something is right or wrong. Let's take like morality out of it, but just what is happening and how that could kind of like take away from the decentralized nature of cryptocurrency. Like I said, like all of these corporations coming over, these whales, a lot of them aren't coming over because they truly believe. I don't want to say all of them. Maybe some of them do, but I would say a large percentage of them just see it as another asset that they can exploit in the future. I mean, look at JP Morgan, right? So JP Morgan might be coming over to cryptocurrency and people are happy about that. But don't forget that they were just fined like hundreds of millions of dollars, I believe, for manipulating the precious metals market. So these institutions, they manipulate traditional markets. And that was the very idea or one of the fundamentals of why, people gravitated towards Bitcoin. So, I'm a huge proponent of it, not just, sorry, I was just saying that, like, I think it's growing at a rate and people are kind of forgetting what they were in it to begin, like, not all of them, but, I guess that's traders, because traders, they're not all of them, I don't want to say traders or traders. That sounds so wrong. But some of them, it's just the bottom line. They just want more money. Actually, to be honest with you, I wouldn't even say that some of them don't just want more crypto. They just want more fiat. The crypto just leads them to gain more fiat. In the end, they're just looking towards the bottom line of gaining more fiat or currency like US dollars or euros or pounds or whatever. So they only see Bitcoin as a means to get more of fiat. And that's why like there's a lot of these companies like PayPal that don't even allow you to own the cryptocurrency, or Webull where you can trade cryptocurrency but you don't own it. You can't send it to anyone, you can't buy anything with it, you just own it. Just if it goes up then you can sell it. So it's merely just a commodity to them, just to turn a profit, and they're not in it because they necessarily believe in it, I guess. So that's how I feel about that.
No, I think you bring up that's a fantastic point. I actually don't think I've heard someone bring that up, that point up with me. Whereas you're saying the purists or the people that were for cryptocurrency in the past was about decentralization, but as more banks and big money comes in, that's kind of taking away from the purist ideology of cryptocurrency. Now, I think I will theoretically disagree that it's bad. I guess I totally see where you're coming from on it. And you even said it's not fully bad, but let me throw this other possible scenario where I think it's still good. So okay. Let's just say all the banks, JP Morgan, Union Bank of America. What's another big bank? But say all the big banks, and including like the Deutsche government. Bank. Okay. Including the U.S. government says, yeah, let's just choose Bitcoin. They say they whatever reason they say, let's put our $75 trillion into Bitcoin, and that's the money that we're going to spend. I think the awesome idea about cryptocurrency, there is still a way to fight that. Like say if the banks and the American government buy Bitcoin and somehow they're able to manipulate the market with the ups and downs of the price of volatility of Bitcoin, and they're still gaining, like the hedge fund managers or people that play stock markets where they're gaining pennies on the dollar or on the trades, and the small people can never get bigger than these rich people because the rich people are playing the stock market. So are these rich people, if they could play Bitcoin, I think the beauty of it with decentralization is if enough people decide to say go with Polkadot, millions and millions of people go with Polkadot and say, screw you US government, screw you banks, you guys have fucked everything up. You had a chance with Bitcoin, but you fucked it up. And what I think would happen is Polkadot, the trade value between Bitcoin and Polkadot would change, meaning I theorize it would take someone that wants to trade Bitcoin for Polkadot, it would be like 90 cents to the dollar or something. That's my theory, because enough people are saying fuck Bitcoin, they don't even want Bitcoin. So the only way that maybe the banks would have to do it is the banks and the government would have to trade Bitcoin, go to fiat, and go to Polkadot. But even then, it would probably be a trade imbalance again. Polkadot would say, no, screw Bitcoin and screw the US dollar. That's my theory. So I think that's the beauty of decentralization. That's a pretty far scenario for that to happen. It'd be pretty crazy if it played out like that.
Yeah, if it ever played out like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can see it already. Like right now, though, there's like there's kind of some manipulation. Now I don't know if this is true or not, because some people say it happened, some people say it didn't. But like in the recent days, there was like the whole Bitcoin crash, and a lot of them say it's because of F2 Pool's dump on the market, which is and they're saying that might even be linked to some conglomerates and corporate institutions that might be connected with China, which is not sure. Like these are just all speculation. This is just all speculation. But the fact is that we have to be careful, because it's almost human nature for
tribalism,
or innate for these institutions, these conglomerates, these governments to want to control something they can't control. So they're going to try to find ways. You know what I mean? So it's like human nature to kind of like I guess what I'm saying is that like these institutions, like I'm saying, they don't necessarily. It's not like they like if you talk to them, these suits, and you ask them what do you think about cryptocurrency, like I think for them it's just the bottom line. Like I think genuinely they just see it as a means to make more fiat. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's kind of I mean, I'm like I said, it's not right or wrong. It's just what is. But it's like if you look deeper, cryptocurrency isn't just a place to make money. It's like it really is like a bunch of communities also like supporting their own coins, and it's also a place for innovation. Like like Cardano, that's one thing that I'm bullish on right now. I mean, yeah, I know they don't have decentralized apps yet, but with the Marlowe Playground, I don't know if you've ever looked into the Marlowe Playground, they're making it easier for people to create smart contracts, so that because in the end, in order for cryptocurrency to go to hit the level that we want to hit it, or we want it to be at, it needs to be somewhat easier to deal with, because it's still somewhat complicated. Like if you tell someone, oh, okay, yo, dude, you should buy Cardano, and it's the truth, because I've told people like, dude, you should buy Cardano, and they're like, okay, so how do I do it? I'm like, oh man, okay, well first you need a Coins.ph account, and then you need to create a account on Binance or Kraken, and then you need to buy into the cryptocurrency, and then you have to send it over to the market, and then you're going to have to change it from that because that pairing doesn't exist. So you're going to have to change it from XRP into USDT or into Bitcoin, and then you're going to have to buy Cardano through. And at that point, they're just like, what are you talking about? Like they're, it's, so I think it's, and that's what I think Coinbase is trying to do. But the only thing with Coinbase is, I don't know, man. Their fees are kind of high. And I get it. It's about turning a profit, but I hope that there's another company that out there that kind of brings cryptocurrency to the mass, does so without the need to necessarily gain so much money. You know what I mean? Because Coinbase, I think, is going to go public soon. So they're definitely. They're trying to turn profits so that they can get more people to buy in, and who knows? And I think it's going to do really well once it goes public, to be honest with you. But I think we need to figure out how to make it easier so that everyone can buy into cryptocurrency. Now, in terms of like acceptance of currency that doesn't exist, or that's kind of already accepted now, because it's like, especially with the pandemic, like here in the Philippines, there's so many places that are just cashless, and they even made it so that temporarily bank transfers there's no fees here in the Philippines when you transfer from a bank to an e-wallet, because they're trying to promote that so that they can lessen the amount of spread that could occur because of the pandemic. So I think it comes at the perfect time, because people are now able to utilize their smartphones like with the QR code and purchase things at malls or coffee shops without even exchanging physical currency. So I don't think it's such an abstract idea to the mass, to the majority of the population, but it's still kind of complex. And I think that's going to be the next movement. And I think that's what Cardano does with the Marlowe Playground, and how individuals can now create their own tokens. And I think they're trying to bring it to the mass, or because a lot of people, if they want to create like smart contracts on Ethereum, it still requires like some type of programming, or you have to be somewhat of a developer in order to play with that. So I think trying to figure out how to, I guess, in a way, kind of dumb it down is going to be key in allowing the rest of the world to accept it as a viable currency, or global currency. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm open to criticism, of course.
I think the rate of adoption will drive better UI, meaning right now, like you said, it's super complicated. If someone wanted to buy Cardano, like you said, they got to go wire money into the exchange, use that money to buy ETH or Bitcoin or Ripple, then use that Ripple to buy Cardano. It's just the steps is just too much. But
Yeah.
as adoption happens, I think more and more developers will get into it, and then they'll build better and better wallets. And with more adoption, hopefully the government will say, oh, the pairing of USD with Cardano is available because it's the government saying we're accepting cryptocurrency. But because the government is so they're so slow to understand technology right now, they've only kind of paired Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few others to the USD. So it's unfortunate that it's so early. Now, for us, that's a good thing to be so early. For us.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, that's true because most people, if you say cryptocurrency, they're thinking, like you said, Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash. But like they don't realize that there's so many different altcoins out there, and each of them, with their own set of followers and communities. You remember, like I was saying, like the reason why I'm kind of bullish on Cardano is because if you take a look at their community, it's a very strong. Actually, I think over 50% of circulating Cardano is being staked right now. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that people are just trying to earn passive income, but it means that they genuinely believe in the currency. Because honestly, if you're just looking to trade it at the top, you're not going to stake it, because even though you can unstake it and then sell it, that's still a period of time that takes. And when it comes to trading, seconds mean hundreds of dollars, right? So the fact that the majority of the ADA in circulation is staked is just proof to me that they believe in the currency itself and that they're not looking to turn a profit. Like, for example, March 1st, you remember the Merry Hard Fork comes out, so it rolls out in 2 days actually, and everyone is what they say, they buy the test net and sell the main net. So it's like everyone, and I don't even know if that happened last night, because dude, it climbed hard last night, but then it also dropped kind of hard last night too. I don't know if that was already the buying the test net, or because it's not even March 1st yet. But a lot of people that I was like chatting with, they said, man, I'm staking it and I'm holding long term, because I genuinely believe. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I genuinely believe I genuinely believe that Cardano is worth $3 or $4 to me, and that's at its minimum. So they're like, am I trying to sell it on the dip, or sell it before the dip happens after Merry Hard Fork rolls out? No. And actually, what the guy told me is, he's like, actually, my main problem in terms of making money is, he's like, I don't want to sell. He's like, I don't want to sell the fiat, sell for fiat. He's like, I'd almost rather have the Cardano than to have the fiat. And he said, because I was like chatting with him, and I was asking what he thought about Cardano and various other altcoins, and he said that like his problem is that it's like he doesn't want to sell it, even if it's worth a lot. It's like he's like, oh, I could sell it now and make this amount of money, or because I think he bought in like when it was like less than 40 cents, so he's up quite a bit. But he's like, I could sell it at its peak. He's like, honestly, I don't see myself selling it anytime soon. He's like, it's always going to be something that I'm always going to own a lot of. So, when I look into investing in altcoins, I look at the community that's supporting the altcoin, because, like I said, that community will be there to buy the dips whenever the dips happen. Traders, they're just looking for whatever's going to spike, hit it and quit it and move on. Whether it's Solana, whether it's Cardano, whether it's Polkadot, whether it's BNB, or who knows, Litecoin. Like they're saying, Litecoin might be the next one because of the Nimble. And it's like, yeah, you can ride that, you can make money off of it and sell, but do you really believe in the currency itself, or are you just riding that wave? And it, a lot of them are just riding that wave. So I don't know if I would necessarily want one cryptocurrency to dominate. Like, I know everyone's kind of like, oh, I'm just looking for that Facebook. They always use that analogy. They're like, I'm looking for that Facebook. But, I actually like the fact that it's somewhat level. I mean, let's be realistic. Bitcoin is definitely the titan of the group. But I almost like the fact that there is a diverse amount of altcoins that are strong. And I think I would prefer that than to have one altcoin that's extremely strong. That it just makes any other cryptocurrency just seem like monopoly money.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of diversity, and I think it drives also diversity also drives innovation, and like Polkadot and their innovation with the parachain auctions and the Mary Hard Fork, Bogan, decentralized apps, the Marlowe Playground, and Ethereum is going to be rolling with Ethereum 2, or so we're I'm pretty excited about the future of cryptocurrency. It's a little bit hot right now, and I guess people love bull markets, but there's a piece of me that can't wait for the bear market, because that's when you make big, to be honest with you, when you buy in when no one's talking about it, and then it climbs.
Yeah.
So I mean, right now it's really a hot spot, especially with Bitcoin climbing, from 20 to 35, 36, then blasting through 45, then blasting through 50. And I mean, it's nuts, dude. Everyone's happy, but also scared at the same time that a bubble might pop. And, you can't keep climbing forever. There has to be consolidating. There has to be a pullback. And so it's expected. And I'm waiting for the pullback. I'd rather be in the point of the pullback so that I don't have to worry about some crazy bubble popping and then all of a sudden, it just devaluing like crazy. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yep.
So I look forward to when it kind of goes bare. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Yep.
I'm looking forward to the winter. Winter is coming, but I'm looking forward to the winter, and I'm hoping that maybe I can buy in more during the winter, because buying in right now when it's red hot is ridiculous. I mean, so I mean, what do you think? Do you think this market is still? I think it's still a bullish market. I think it's still a bull market, actually.
I hope it's a bull market. Selfishly, I read some analysts and watched some YouTube videos on people giving evidence on why they think the bull market's going to continue. And one guy predicted Ethereum at $10,000 near the end of the year. And then he thinks Bitcoin about 200,000 by the end of the year. And then I think there were some JP Morgan analysts that predicted Bitcoin at 150,000 by the end of the year. So hopefully, for my selfish reasons, I would like it to go there. But like,
of course, everyone wants to make money.
But like I guess to some extent, I think everyone is afraid of the winter, but it's inevitable, I think. I don't know. As in when the winter's going to hit.
Shoot. Where do you get white papers from? Like, is there like a database of just random white papers on like specific cryptocurrencies and things like that?
No. Each cryptocurrency that's truly decentralized will have their code open source, and they all have normally a white paper too. So whatever website that they're on, they usually have their white paper right on their website. So you just find the link on there. If it's not on their website, then they should at least have it maybe in their GitHub, because their GitHub will be their open source code, and then hopefully their white paper in there. If the white paper isn't on their website.
I saw that Cardano. Actually, did you hear about the thing with Elon Musk and Cardano?
No. Elon Musk.
Okay, so the reason I know about the white paper, it's on Cardano's website, but basically, Elon Musk tweeted like 5 days ago or 6 days ago, he changed his profile picture to a fork in the road. Like it was literally like a Photoshop photo of a fork stuck in the road.
Saw that. Yep.
Okay, so and then he changed the title to it, or it said Metaphor K, or Metaphor K, and so everyone thought that he was talking about Cardano. Because if you look at the white paper, in the beginning paragraph of the description of ADA or Cardano, it starts with Cardano is a fork in the road, right? So everyone was like, "Oh, dude, is he trolling? Is he trolling Cardano? Is he trolling Cardano?" And so this was all speculation. and then the thing it said Metaphor or Metaphor K, the K programming language that's going to be associated with Cardano. So everyone's like, oh my gosh, is he trolling? Is he trolling? You know, and so we're all, which it might be good because you know he kind of drops hints before he buys in. Like before he trolled Dogecoin, he actually kind of before he bought Dogecoin, he actually trolled it for a bit. So actually a few weeks before. So Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, actually 2 days ago, I think, actually tweeted something saying that yes, it's confirmed Papa E was trolling Cardano. So everyone was already speculating that he was talking about Cardano, and then Charles Hoskinson tweeted like, yeah, he said, yes, Elon Musk is trolling Cardano, and we love him for it. We love him for it. Thanks, Papa E, or something like that. So it's just interesting. So it's interesting to know that. So there might be a possibility that because just 2 days before that, he also tweeted against Peter Schiff,
you know, I think.
Schiff.
I think so.
The gold or whatever.
Yeah.
He did say that. Like with that being said, he said Bitcoin and Ethereum is quite expensive. So everyone that in itself already caused people kind of possibly sell off. And then he changed his profile picture to that. So it kind of makes sense that he would buy into Cardano, because to be honest with you, dude, Dogecoin, no one's developing Doge, dude. It's a dead end, dude. It's no one's developing it. It's just a meme coin. And if he was looking to get into a coin that has a, you know, like legit potential, like potential as in not is already huge already, it would be Cardano, if that makes any sense at all. I guess. Yeah. Because at least he'd be buying into a coin that isn't useless. I mean, I'm not against any Dogers out there or whatnot, but let's be realistic. The only reason a lot of people bought Dogecoin is because Elon Musk was so bullish on it. Mm-hmm. So and people are, I mean, like I said, if Elon Musk said dog shit was worth money, people would fucking go outside and start collecting dog shit. That's how fucking powerful Elon Musk is. Yeah. But for me, it kind of sent me like kind of wondering, like, why out of all the cryptocurrencies would he push Dogecoin? So I don't know. Take it for what it is. But Charles Hoskinson did release, he did tweet saying that Papa E was indeed trolling Cardano because of the Merry Hard Fork that's rolling out March 1st. So there's a possibility. I wouldn't be surprised if Elon Musk bought into Cardano. But we still need the rest of the mainnet, like Goguen, to completely roll out, because there's still not going to be any decentralized apps. So March 1st is just the beginning of the rollout. That's why I plan to hold, like, long term. I'm not going to sell the mainnet because there's a lot of things in Cardano's pipeline that are coming out. So look forward to it. I still have my ETH though. Actually, I bought more ETH because of the dip.
Nice.
So I mean, I don't know. It's weird though, because there's a friction, because people that love Ethereum tend to hate Cardano, and a lot of it has to do with Charles Hoskinson. Because you remember Charles Hoskinson was the co-founder of Ethereum, and I guess Charles tends to troll Ethereum, and people kind of get upset. But to be honest with you, if you look at all the things that he trolls, it's kind of like it's healthy criticism, because it's things that Ethereum needs to work on, and everyone's waiting on Ethereum. Like the sad reality, or I guess not the sad reality, but the reality is, hold on, sorry. All right, there it goes. Let me, now it's good to go. I'm gonna start recording.
Okay.
Okay. But the reality is that Ethereum does need to do something about these ridiculous gas fees, and that they're not capable of handling the load that they are currently holding right now, which is why it's allowing Polkadot and Cardano to gain ground or market cap. So, I mean, I think Cardano is now the third, right? I think it overtook Tether and it overtook BNB. So I think it's healthy criticism. And, you know, if people don't like Charles Hoskinson, then, you know, I think actually he's just a little bit egotistical. Maybe he has a bit of an ego, but he's a very intelligent individual. And I think most people that are that intelligent tend to have a very large ego. So, but it doesn't mean I'm going to discredit his product, you know? But one thing that he said in yesterday when he was talking, he released an update on YouTube on his channel. is he said, you know, to be honest with you, he said, Cardano doesn't need me. It doesn't need Charles Hoskinson. He said, it needs you. It needs all of you. And he said, and I thank all of you for getting Cardano to where it is. And that's why the Cardano community resonates with me, because it's really like, he's really engaging. He engages with his community. He releases like almost daily updates on YouTube. You know, he does have somewhat a little bit of an ego, but it's not enough for me to be deterred by his personality. So that's how I feel about Cardano. But okay, yeah. All right. So now that we're recording, where do you want?
All right, let's go. I got 2 last questions, and then we'll take it from there afterwards. Okay. What is the biggest problem nationally or globally? What should humans do to fix it?
What is the biggest problem nationally or globally? Oh man. Oh, that is a difficult question, because there's just so many problems, especially so many problems that have come to the surface because of this pandemic. Whoo! Oh man, the biggest problem. Well, I think in general, I think failed leadership is a huge problem. Some might argue that climate change is the biggest problem, and I can agree with them that it's a very huge problem. But I think in the very short term, I think failed leadership and terrible leaders is more dangerous than climate change right now. I think we're living in a time where there is just a lot of demagogues out there, I guess you can say. I don't know. It's really difficult. It's getting kind of political, I guess. So maybe I should change my answer to that. But my genuine answer to that, I think, is failed leadership. And I think in order to fix that, we need to educate the mass. I think we need to raise awareness and education. And I think when you raise education on a level, you know, globally, even not even just within the country, but just across the board, I think we'll be more capable of electing better leaders, I guess you can say, because we kind of got, you know, caught with our pants down, so to speak, when this natural disaster happened. And I hate to say it, but natural disasters are going to keep on happening, and we need great leaders to lead us through these dark times. And if we're not smart enough or intelligent enough or aware enough to elect the correct leaders, I think we're just going to we're on a downward spiral. And climate change is a part of that too, because great leaders address the fact that there is indeed a problem with climate change and global warming, and dude, weird things are happening right now, dude. So I think we definitely need to address that situation, but I think that situation will be addressed once we have the leadership that deems that important and deems that climate change is a real problem, and it's not just a conspiracy theory, and that you know, everyone's like, oh well, this is just normal, you know, it's like climate changes, and well, no man, we're doing things to the planet that is accelerating the rate at which the climate of this planet is changing, and if we want to keep it habitable for the most part, we need to start changing some things, because we can't just keep continuing on this road. Because it's like, can you imagine that we've only, in terms of like how long this planet has been around, we've only reached this level of technology and industrialization, and we've changed the planet so much in such a little time. If you look at how long the planet's been around, that if we continue on at this rate, that you know, our grandkids might not be living in a sunny San Diego, or might not be living in a sunny Philippines, or California might not have such great weather, or Texas might all of a sudden, you know, who knows, might turn into, you know, Iceland, you know, or Greenland. I guess Greenland is the really cold place. So we don't know. I think we need to address our leaders right now, and that will only happen if we can educate the people that are voting and allow them to understand that voting is important, and that it is also a responsibility, and you must do so responsibly. and do your own research. Do your, so I think that's it. So I would say that the biggest problem right now is failed leadership in the world. And I think the way that we could mitigate that or fix that problem, or at least somewhat decrease that problem in the world right now, is through education. And yeah, so that's my answer.
Gotcha. Awesome. Next question. You already named JC as a person that should do this conversation. Name one more person that you think should do this conversation.
Ooh. Let me think. Yeah, JC. Because someone I would like to recommend would be someone that is pretty outgoing and not like, because there's a lot of people I know that would be that I think would benefit from a conversation like this. But honestly, I don't know if they would necessarily talk in front of the camera, because that's just not their.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like they get like super scared. So let me think here. Let me think. Oh man, that's a hard one. Shoot, I don't know if I can think of a second person right now. I mean, I could probably think of one like down the road, but JC definitely being my strongest candidate, because I think he has a very interesting story to tell. You know what I mean? And I think he's like on the same level as us. Like also he loves cryptocurrency too. So can I get back to you on that one?
Yeah, that's fine. All right. And then last question. Tell me in a few sentences or less what it's like to do this conversation. If you've done a podcast before, describe the biggest difference. I may use this in a video collage for new potential guests.
Well, I've never done a podcast before, so this is my first time. I got a lot of the conversation. I think, like I said, I enjoy listening to podcasts, so I'm very intrigued on hearing other people's perspectives, whether they agree with me or not. So just telling my story, allowing, hopefully some people are at least a little bit more knowledgeable of what a medtech is after this conversation, I think would be amazing. Because I think a lot of people forget about us, or not even forget about us. They just don't even know who we are. But I mean, I just love personal, engaging conversations like the one that we just had, because I feel like even me, I am learning more out, from this conversation. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit like, oh man, how do you do a podcast? I've never done something like this before. But I'm glad I did it, because I feel like I also gained a little bit of confidence out of it too, because I think I feel like, wow, I really could do a podcast. Because I've always dreamed about also possibly doing a podcast, but I was always thinking of what would I say on air? Would I freeze up? Would what I'm saying sound stupid to some people? Do I sound like I'm not articulate? I can't articulate my thoughts into words, well enough. So I think also would people, I'd be afraid if people would pass judgment on me. So I'm really glad that I was able to have this podcast, because I feel like it also gave me confidence to like realize that, maybe I could, do a podcast later on in the future, and maybe people would find it interesting to hear my thoughts on a given subject. And, so I'm glad I did it. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad that you had me on your podcast.
No, thank you. All right, Jeff, it was a pleasure having you on the show, man. Thanks for joining this podvercation, yeah.
Wait, what's it called?
Podvercation?
Podvercation. Podcast Podcastervation. No, that sounds horrible.
Well, thanks for doing this podcast with me, man. We should do a second one, because we didn't talk about your time at Fry's. We didn't talk about your the military guns.
Oh, when I was at DoD contractor, I worked at the range, the gun range.
We have enough content probably for a part 2. So.
All right, man. Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, and I got a lot of this conversation as well. So I look forward to the second conversation.
Awesome. All right, man. See ya.
All right. Later, man. Take care.